Welcome back to the Overwatch Pacific Championship. We're about to head into match number 2. It's week 10, of course. I'm AVRL. With me still is Pixie, as we're about to get into Fireball and DeToNator.GOLD. So that should be a very tight game, I'm expecting.
Yeah, this should be an exciting one. This is quite possibly going to be the most exciting match of the night. DeToNator.GOLD, they've had a couple of roster swap-ups, so have Fireball. And frankly, Fireball are always an entertaining team to watch.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's going to be... It's both of these teams... Like I've said previously before the break, you know, they've made the roster changes quite recently. Not only that, but two teams that I believe are still on their way up and the rise as well. So, more in particular, it has been DeToNator.GOLD that's in that position, though. Generally speaking,
yeah. I kind of don't know what to expect out of this, as much as I do feel that Fireball are favored coming into it. Look, DeToNator, they're a team that is increasingly looking more and more likely to upset. It's a shame in a way that they never seem to.
This might be the one match they will, though, because DeToNator so far, they have 3 wins. All 3 wins were against Sunsister. So, in a way, it's like Sunsister. They haven't gotten a single win off of anybody. Fireball have only gotten wins off Sunsister and DeToNator, and 1 match win against Machi as well. So, a win here for DeToNator would be very important. This will be their last opportunity, I believe, to get that 1 match win outside of only winning it against Sunsister as well.
Yeah, that's actually quite an interesting... Quite an interesting point about the standings, because I suppose I hadn't really thought too much about that. That is actually very true of Fireball. As much as they have been the better of those teams, they actually haven't picked up any upset wins themselves, really. I think they may have taken the odd map win here or there, certainly more than what DeToNator have, but now that DeToNator are doing that too, like I said, you feel that this is a position where DeToNator could get an upset.
All right, so we're going to have some words from both sides. Zinlo on the left, I believe it's Saihate on the right as well.
哦，中文的意思应该很明显，就是请他们加油。哎，那我们想问一下 ，DT 这边有什么回应呢？
Try your best.
哇，
And
大家来台湾的这段时间呢，都有做了语言上的交流。
Very friendly exchange of words there. Friendly handshake as well. No shade being thrown.
You know what?
No serenity saying, look, okay, you won't get a score here or whatever it is.
It's not shade, but it kind of feels like it is. It's like when you get into Hearthstone, you can't say anything mean, but like you do something stupid and the other guy's like, thank you. And then you're like, wow. Like, there is nothing friendly. Yeah, there is nothing friendly about that exchange, right? But like, you can only use nice words like, yeah, try your best. Like, oh, thanks. Like,
oh, well met. So there it is. And both teams be heading into this one. And DeToNator fresh off a loss against Machi as well. So something they have to sort of carry with them, I guess, into this, because outside of, you know, you look at where we got Fireball, and then there's Machi, Hong Kong Attitude. Right now, Hong Kong Attitude looking unbeatable, at least for teams below them, and even teams above them. To be honest, Hong Kong Attitude are literally just looking a little bit unbeatable. So, what are your next best shots here? Machi, you've already lost to them 0-3. It's just Fireball now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's absolutely the case. Look, Fireball, that's why they kind of want to pick up this win. Look, they don't want to get dislodged from where they are now. If they can't move forward, they certainly don't want to move backward. You know, they have beaten DeToNator and Sunsister every time they've met. They want to make sure that that remains the case up until the end of the tournament. This would be a really terrible time for them to suddenly lose that.
I would say so as well. So, you know,
actually, I tell you what, they do actually have one more win. Yeah, here we go. They do actually have one win beyond that, and that was in the first round robin. They did actually beat Machi.
Yes, that's one that I did bring up, is that one upset. It wasn't. I would say it was not an upset, because back then it was.
Machi were actually below Fireball in the standings.
That's true.
For a brief moment.
Fireball were 5th and Machi was 6th. So that was the 1 match difference. And then obviously Machi.
So you can't call it an upset. You'd call it an upset if it happened now, but certainly not back then.
I would say so now would probably be an upset. But even then, Fireball are kind of the next team to be able to do that, if at all. So, I mean, I would say this is a fairly important game for DeToNator. As far as standings goes, neither team can really change the standing here. Fireball will still be in the 6th place spot. DeToNator will likely still be in the 7th place spot, unless, you know,
unless something
somehow
absolutely nuts happens.
They would have to, they would have to pull something out crazy. So that's just exactly what it is currently. So for both teams, for DeToNator especially, this will be a chance to get a win outside that bottom 2.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you want to get a win outside of that bottom 2. Maybe this is the roster that can do it for you, but this is also a tough spot for them to be at, because they did just lose to Machi 0-3. By the way, this here now is Fireball. Get familiar, new player DeToNator.GOLD, by the way, on their team as of last week, and already it's kind of working out for them. We'll get a bit more of an in-depth look at them as a team as well in a moment.
I wonder if you ever replace DeToNator, and the guy's got a different name, but you just say, can we just call you DeToNator version 4? Because that would be That would be kind of the go-to there.
You bring in a new. What if it's actually been a different guy each time?
I know for a fact version 2 was still the same guy. So there's that. Sensei and Sabagot as well.
What he was doing, by the way, he was showing his teammate what a hot dog looks like. It's like this. It's kind of long. If I was holding it sideways, it would be like that.
Mustard
so Hardy's like, oh, that's a hot dog, right? I haven't had one.
And I was just going to mention as well, you didn't get to see their picks behind them, but actually now,
that's Yoshiharu is the fisherman, right? This guy actually... He's caught Dodlov, that's great. Yoshiharu actually is a fisherman. Like, that was his profession before he became a professional gamer. Dodlov, are you okay, buddy?
That's what you look like, fish out of water, and didn't do feel like a bit of fish out of water currently right now as well. It's interesting because commercial fishermen and then also that kind of fishing, not quite the same thing, but...
Yeah. Well, look, now here is that
commercial fishing, and then there's going out on a boat with your dad on Sunday.
Here is that detailed rundown. We're going to get a Fireball. Rocket is actually playing support now, so those few picks there aren't quite as relevant. T2Watt is now their main tank, and like I said, so far that's really working out for them.
I'd say so, and the big problem they've had so far, for a very long time was no one was the main tank player. They tried to flick Zalfix onto there coming up from Lucio. That wasn't quite working.
Right.
They
What's
put
the
Rocket on there.
I mean, all right, but compared to what he normally does...
I thought he was going to go fishing as well for a moment. So
yeah, compared to what he normally does, that was a little bit of a letdown. Sorry, Apudo.
What he normally does is play phenomenal Genji, though, so hopefully that won't be a letdown.
And by the way, by getting... what am I trying to say? Here we go. By getting T2Watt into the mix, they've actually opened up ninth a lot more, I feel, and that is now where their triple DPS can kind of come from. So they're actually enjoying a lot of the flexibility... Way to go.
That's what happens every time Smite puts on his glasses as well.
Yeah, because he can't see before he's got them on. It's a real problem. But yeah, bringing T2Watt on the team has really so far been able to push Fireball to a bit of a new level, and that's actually quite good news for them. Again, it's says, look, if you can't move forward, yeah, you want to make sure that you can't go backwards either. And honestly, this is the best looking Fireball we've ever seen. In a way, it's almost a shame they weren't able to pick up wins against teams like Machi.
Yeah, exactly, but keeping their spot still against a team like DeToNator is still important. I actually quite look forward to this matchup, not only because it's two close teams, but also I look forward to the Anakin versus Apudo duel, because I kind of put these two players as very similar in their teams, both outstanding DPS players in general, both outstanding Genjis in particular though, and that is always an interesting sort of matchup between only these two teams that you sort of get.
All right, well, DeToNator are going to take this one back to Nepal. This is exactly where Machi took them just a few moments ago. So we'll have to see how that kind of works out, because I mean, Nepal was a little bit of a struggle for them, and I would say Fireball are an equally aggressive team as Machi in a lot of ways.
I'd say Fireball are known for their aggression. They've been playing, that's partly due to the fact that they've been playing only dive kind of exclusively, that being the reason of the fact that we're running Rocket on the Winston for the longest time now, even with T2Watt. Haven't seen much of T2Watt's run. I've seen a little bit, but mostly they're still running the dive. They're used to it now enough. They've, I guess, mastered it within their own team enough that this is what they do.
Yeah, and now bringing in T2Watt and playing dive still when they've got someone who's a bit more comfortable in the tank, opening back up that flexibility back again, getting Rocket back onto support. They're basically doing what they've already been doing and making work, but they're doing it more comfortably. They're doing it with everyone on more preferred picks in more preferred roles. And that is why they're currently kind of looking their best. And it just happens to be an added bonus that on top of that, they've been able to kind of open up triple DPS as an option with ninth as well.
Yeah, the big part of where Fireball's strength is now not only just resting in Apudo, but with the combo of Internet as well. Then you got T2Watt onto his Winston, which is a main pick for him as far as all the main tanks goes. As you said, everyone on their preferred picks, not only that, but you've got power players that are also now being able to coordinate properly with this now new main tank player that you really put in the mix together. Suddenly their dive looks so much better, their dive looks a lot scarier, and that's something for DeToNator to be concerned about.
It really does. And funnily enough, in the series they just played against Machi, because they had Rai in the mix there and there's still a few kinks to be ironed out, Machi's dive wasn't super clean at all times, and there were a lot of times DeToNator were able to react to it quite well. There were a lot of times Machi kind of mucked up their own engages there, even though they were quite aggressive. There were a lot of times that still went off very well. But look, given that that's the case and DeToNator still lost, you kind of can't help but feel that, like, right now in this particular moment, Fireball's dive is stronger than Machi's just based on that one performance. And I think DeToNator are actually going to have maybe a harder time in this than they did against Machi.
And for DeToNator as well, this is the difference in their sort of change-up and lineup as well is the fact that they're bringing on fresher players that haven't played with the team versus DeToNator, who was originally on the team, albeit quite a long time ago, but he was on the team and is someone that they have a lot more experience with. So it's more teething issues, I believe, for DeToNator rather than for Fireball. Also, the fact that Fireball had DeToNator on in the previous week, so they've got that extra week worth of practice with him.
Yeah, that's quite a significant factor as well. And like we said, in that week, they did look quite good. So it's still, I mean, it was no matter what, that it's still on DeToNator to kind of step up to the plate here and actually start. I mean, if nothing else, they've got to be able to take map wins off on Control, even if they don't win it. And you'd certainly hope that they could actually take out of Control. This is their pick. This is the place to do it.
I would say so. I would say, you know, with DeToNator's sort of apparent issues against Machi, they have to sort of figure out what is good for them. They had a bit of time now in between those two matches. Now coming into Fireball, what were the issues against Machi? Do you run Saihate on Tracer or do you run him on Soldier? That's been a question. Do you need Anakin to play Genji? Is that all that you have to do? Is that the only thing you can do to really get results? Or can you put Anakin on something else? It's always been a bit of a concern for the team. And, you know, we'll have to find out. They do look like they want to stick onto something they started off against with Machi though.
Yeah, going to Village first. By the way, I've always appreciated on Village how the two halves of the Village were actually nice enough to color coordinate their buildings. That was very kind of them.
And build exactly even as well, just
yeah, like
perfectly symmetrical.
Like that was, I mean, it's a little uncanny almost, but it's funny that the blue team comes out of the red half of the Village as well. It's like, you know, they're still very accepting of other beliefs. But here we go, the open out actually is DeToNator getting
Both
picked.
Winstons.
But the responses are kind of there for Fireball. They're not letting up on the aggression. Yeah, great deflect on the rockets. And Apudo kind of went, all right, well, you can kill my tank, but I'm going to still run rampant. And that does mean Fireball get the better of this early fight. There was a very narrow window for them to convert kills to kind of keep it alive for them, and they did exactly that. So very nicely held.
Well played by both teams to really curb the aggression by killing the Winstons first. Usually you see Zenyatta's dying early, but now you're seeing Winstons dying early. That's kind of the opposite.
DeToNator are kind of trickling in here. Yoshiharu decided he wanted to contest the points. Lost his life very early. The cap had already gone over to Fireball. They are getting a good number of kills here. Apudo, poor guy. Luckily didn't lose the ultimate for that, but they aren't exactly doing nicely on this point either. So despite Yoshiharu losing his life, despite it looking a little rough actually for DeToNator, I thought they were going to kind of trickle in and look the fool, but they were actually able to close out the kills and get the cap off Fireball.
Yeah, well timed and well sort of, I guess, they've read the situation correctly and said, look, we can actually retake here. Saihata's actually going to hide on the side, come in late with his tactical visor. So this is going to be an interesting gambit. I don't know if they realize Apudo still has a Dragon Blade or not. I think there may be a chance DeToNator believe the Dragon Blade is gone, so they're going to open up a different type of play based on that knowledge.
Yeah, and that does actually mean Apudo can really have the element of surprise here. It's going to come out, they're going to go, what? Eugene's here? Fireball are actually getting a cap through.
I told Eugene to go home.
What on earth?
Yeah, DeToNator kind of let that one go because Saihate was hiding as well.
They abandoned the point. They didn't actually commit to the fight at the right time. It's like they were sort of going, oh, we'll wait for Fireball to actually start the fight. And Fireball were like, well, we'll start the fight when we encounter the team. The team wasn't there. Now, this tactical visor is just not getting anything done. It's getting blocked up. He was too far away from the fight because it was all on the other side of the point. It was on the far side from where he was. They gave that over to Fireball. They botched the fight. And, okay, hands in just threw out a pulse bomb.
It's like you want to win. He just wanted to win really hard. I don't know.
Just like
he doesn't like the ground.
Destroy the snow. He's sick of the cold. I don't know.
It does. It is a little bit of a problem because Fireball are not actually out of the woods yet. They're not super far ahead in progress. They're not even they're not ahead in terms of ultimates either. So it's not like DeToNator can't just come in and win again, which is totally possible.
Good aggression by DeToNator, right onto Sabagod. No protection for him, and now has the ultimate as well. That's the thing. He had the ultimate in case things started to go all right anyway, but they didn't. DeToNator did not really collapse on him when they had the opportunity. Now he's continuing to run rampant, applying so much pressure. Amican on the backside, and one guy getting 3 kills to secure that fight off the back of one ultimate really helps them get the ult economy back off the ground.
Absolutely. At a time when, you know, Inzana kind of just chucked out a pulse bomb for free, they make kind of good enough plays to sort of put themselves back up, and now they are, progress-wise at least, really threatening to close out this game, which is a bit of a problem for DeToNator, who at least have saved ultimate, so they've got to make this really count.
Yeah, DeToNator have got to be feeling silly after giving that cap back over, because this has all just kind of been a knock-on effect from there. Now already losing Sabagod, who was unable to kind of join the team in their ideal kind of way as they were kind of piling onto the point here. They do get a lot of progress on it, but Fireball are here for the contest. They do pop the mech, but Saihade is in a lot of trouble, has to run away, but they catch the sticky there and they close out on 9th as well. Aputo now trying to answer back with this Dragon Blade. He's got a good number. Picking Amakin off the back end of that could just be all they need to secure it. Oh, Sensei just barely kept it alive for a moment there, but he's out of that Primal Rage now. DeToNator still there. They did get the cap over briefly, but the cap is going to go back over to Fireball. Overtime is ticking down. DeToNator will be trickling onto this at best. I don't even think they'll be able to contest. No, they do not, and Fireball get 1 point on the board.
Yeah, not enough members. A similar story to what we saw from Machi versus DeToNator again, which is kind of basically, you know, their members died so late as the time was going into the overtime. 2 members of DeToNator still respawning that we saw. Only 4 members live, even if they had contested the overtime. As you said, trickling on, always on the back foot. That's a bit of a problem. And the biggest mistake, letting that cap go in the middle, got to be kicking themselves.
Kicking themselves is one way to think about it. You almost wonder, right? Like they were just describing what a hot dog is like to Saihade, and right now, Saihade has not earned the hot dog. It's teasing him, tantalizing
That's what
him.
you could get. Because remember, Sensei's the coach. I assume he's still the coach.
He wants to earn the hot dog, but he has to earn it. And if he doesn't win, no hot dog for you.
That's one way to go about it.
I really want a hot dog now.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, if you want one, you're going to have to win as well. DeToNator versus Fireball.
I'm going to have to get over to Taiwan and play this game.
All right, we've got the Genji 1v1, which is, again, what I've been really looking forward to seeing.
Great dive, actually, to catch Kurlos. They do get a response kill onto Sensei, rather, which is a good opener, at least for Fireball, but they didn't quite convert the extra kills they needed to in that brief window they had. And great
That's
deflex.
one way to play.
Yeah. They do start losing members now, though. Fireball kind of committing to the fight, having picked off those 2 healers, and they're getting good pressure down. Response kills not actually coming through the way of DeToNator. So they didn't actually commit on the ideal window, but they're still kind of able to get it over the line here. Picking Amakin as well means they will actually get a cap back. And this is kind of the inverse of what we saw on the very first map here, where actually it was DeToNator who kind of stole it back off Fireball after the first fight.
Well, you know, this time around, Fireball, you're right. It is some good plays from Amakin, but ultimately not good enough. Enzo cleaning that one at the end of the day. And I always still feel like Saihate on the Tracer, he's coming along, but Enzuna is becoming one of the better Tracers of the competition. It's very difficult to compete with a player of this kind of caliber. Now, Fireball in control of the cap, in control of ultimate economy as well, and the first kill of the next fight. So everything's going their way, and DeToNator got to go for another regroup. Losing yet another, I would say we're going to go to 30% easy before they contest.
Yeah, just losing the one guy, I mean, it takes the win right out of the sails.
Big guy too.
Yeah, because they weren't actually in position to fight. So, by the way, that's why sometimes you see them lose a member but still commit to the fight, and sometimes they lose a member and they can't. It's because of the positioning, and when it happens early, before you're actually set up in position, that's when that happens. This is great pressure out of Enzuna. He doesn't even need to use the pulse bomb here by the looks of it. Actually, he's going to have to recall there. Sabagod able to get to the health pack, but it's keeping Sabagod out of this fight.
Died.
Yeah, Enzuna dying is actually very unfortunate there, because now DeToNator have the numbers advantage. They're going to be able to get the healer back into the mix, and Fireball don't actually have the DPS on the point to keep contesting this one. DeToNator are actually starting to get the kills through. Sabagod had to commit the Transcendence, but they're closing out the kills. They will be able to get a re-grab through here in a moment.
Absolutely, and it really started, you know, Enzuna chased for a decent while. He got punished by Sabagod himself, and then obviously the next few members of DeToNator, of Fireball rather, died. Amakin pulling out the Dragon Blade as well. Self-destruct, tried to bide a little bit of time for Fireball, tried to push away Amakin. Yeah, he hid, but the rest of Fireball couldn't clean anything up. Both DPSs for Fireball sitting on ultimates. They should look to make a comeback here. Got to fight through a sound barrier though.
Yeah, and that's really the big tool that DeToNator have at their disposal. Plus, they can stall a lot with Sensei to try and get more ultimates up. This is a very quick early commit out of Fireball. Actually, committing DeToNator's ultimate into that. Nearly got the pick on the Enzuna there, but didn't quite get to connect there, unfortunately. There's a little bit down to the wire, but Saihade off to the start, and Aputo getting aggressive on the backside. That's all the ultimates actually used for Fireball. They are converting the kills through. They are making it happen. Killing off Sensei as well. Amakin, he is going to be able to commit a Dragon Blade here, but I don't think he's going to get much for it. He does pick Kurlos, but it's going to go down to Aputo there. So they have actually kind of got this fight in their control here, Fireball. Just need to close out a few more, and have been able to rebuild a ton of ult charge off this one as well.
Been pretty good. It's a decent fight for them, and still waiting to cap though. This is a little bit of a slow cap, which is going to affect their progress, and it actually puts DeToNator in a pretty decent position. They actually overtook Fireball progress-wise in the middle. Then, in fact, It doesn't look like DeToNator want to give up. They're still kind of feeding members in.
The only thing is now they're kind of trickling onto it. I mean, they are delaying the cap, sure, but now actually Fireball are going to get even more ultimates recharged because DeToNator kind of went onto this 1-by-1. They went into, you know, Fireball territory. Fireball was set up on the point, and they're still kind of doing it now. Now, actually, if they go into scattered, they're going to have a real hard time getting back onto this one. Fireball are actually in a very good position now.
They're in a decent position. Not as many ultimates as we thought they would get after all those kills. The defensive ones should be coming up fairly soon. Good stall options. We're in a sort of space where it's actually not really safe for DeToNator because Fireball, if they win this next fight, they should just be able to force it into the overtime and then maybe threaten the cap out as well. Because they got the ultimate lead, that puts DeToNator severely on the back foot.
DeToNator have a window using this transcendence that they are going to have to make the most of. Very early sound barrier means Fireball wants to fight, and they want to fight now. Ninth already with the self-destruct as well, but they don't actually get the kills through off the back of it. Apudo committing as well. That is the transcendence forced out. Now they start to close out the kills. Apudo unfortunately losing his life, but it is still a little bit back and forth. Fireball, they still have DeToNator's ult, and that could be all they need. Sensei does have his, but Fireball starts to get the kills through. And it does look like DeToNator are going to be forced off. Amakin gets out with his life here. Oh, great follow-up by DeToNator. Yeah, no such luck. Nope, DeToNator tester. And now it's just these two Winstons kind of smacking each other about. Sensei, he doesn't even ult to stall, and that should just mean this one goes the way of Fireball because the respawns were there for DeToNator, but now they probably won't be able to actually get to the point in convincing fashion. Fireball now 2-0 up, earning some hot dogs.
I don't know why he didn't Primal Rage there because he needed to. There was no other situation. It's not like there's going to be another fight. Yeah. It's not like he was going to respawn in time to be able to use it in another life. I mean, that was it. If you don't use it, the game is over.
His finger that normally hits Q cramped. He just like couldn't get it. They're like, and he just couldn't move it that extra millimeter to press the key. I don't know.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. That finger cramp when I'm playing video games.
There's injuries in most sports, and this would be the one in esports.
Yeah.
Fellas, gotta watch out. That's why Apudo does the stretches. He hasn't done them for a long time, but you know that's why he used to do them.
I'll be honest, actually, that's not completely wrong. You do actually, those are the muscles you use in esports. Doing finger stretches is not a bad call, to be frank with you. Bit of a different comp out the gate now for DeToNator.
It is, and DeToNator still, this is now trying to figure out again. So they've gone from Saihate on Tracer to now Amakin on Tracer. So like I said, this is still DeToNator not figuring out who they actually want to permanently play that Tracer, who plays the other DPS role. Both of these DPS players just kind of trading back and forth.
Speaking of trading back and forth, no response kills coming through the way of DeToNator as they lose their tank, they lose one of their DPSs, and now Saihate is in a lot of trouble and they just get absolutely routed at the top of this first skirmish. Fireball already set up on the point.
So not really back and forth, just back, and the fourth part didn't really happen.
Yeah.
Only one team got the kills.
Or it's fourth with no back.
Well, yeah, it's whichever way you sort of want to go into that one. Fireball commanding sort of opening fight. 4 kills, I believe it was for them. So
that's why it was fourth and not back.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't fifth or anything.
It wasn't fifth, yeah.
I still think Saihate's gonna find it a little bit difficult because Apudo is just gonna stick onto this Genji. Fireball's that team that will just choose to not really stick on a soldier. They don't need to. They're just going to play only Genji Tracer, and they're one of the few teams that really make it work too.
Yeah, it is very aggressive, but it does. You're right, it does work. DeToNator though, they're actually kind of matching Fireball here going to. They're not quite getting into the position they want to, unfortunately, and now this is the opportunity for Fireball to go into the aggressive as they've kind of caught DeToNator all up in this room. This is not where they wanted to be setting up. They've lost Sabagon. Good pickup kill onto Apudo though, and the sound barrier means DeToNator, they want to fight, but they are struggling to fight through the Transcendence because all the members of Fireball are clustered. They're all benefiting from it. And DeToNator, they had to commit ultimates just to get out of that room. And as it turned out, afterwards, they didn't really have enough to go ahead and commit a fight. So they do sort of retreat, but that was so uncomfortable.
That's a super awkward spot for Saihate to be as well. I think DeToNator, they went for the drop-down play. And I feel like they should have just gone for the open area play. That would have had given Saihate at least much better sight lines, looking at his point of view there. He ended up narrowly escaping with his life while the rest of DeToNator just died. Fireball still sitting on so many ultimates. This is really difficult for DeToNator to break through, and we're already on 74%.
It's a very aggressive throw out there by Fireball, and it absolutely pays off. Apudo committing his ultimate as well. So they do use 2 to secure out that fight, but it is well secured, and they did actually force out the Transcendence as well. So they're kind of happy to take that trade. In fact, I think they forced out the Sound Barrier was from the previous fight. That's just how little Dodolov was able to do in that fight. That's how low his ultimate charge is now. So Fireball still ult economy in their favor.
Absolutely. 2 ultimates used in the last fight. 3 still left to go. Stalling options available, health options and DPS options. They got everything they need to sort of secure this one out.
Got there, they barreled onto the point here, DeToNator, but they again lose this Zenyatta because if everyone's barreling onto the point, who is going to protect the healer against NZNR? The self-destruct from Yoshiharu buys them a bit of space, but they don't actually have the members. They're not actually set up, and Fireball just re-engage the fight. They're getting back onto the point, closing out all the kills. Sensei does get one back, but it is too little, too late. No hot dogs for DeToNator, and Fireball, they're going to get this one 3-0.
That was a very convincing one as well. Some of the other, we will look on Village. Village was a little bit back and forth. Then you got to Shrine, slightly better for Fireball, but still DeToNator had a few good moments there. Then you got to Sanctum. That was all Fireball. There was barely any DeToNator left in them. I mean, the only thing detonating there was the one self-destruct from 9th that caught 2 kills.
That was pretty saucy as well. That was quite interesting because we did note on Village, Fireball won the opening skirmish. Then DeToNator kind of stole it off them, if you will, like immediately afterwards. And then actually kind of let Fireball take the point. That was a little unfortunate. I do actually feel that DeToNator maybe could have held on to that one and actually given Fireball a run for the money. It's hard to say whether Fireball would have actually closed that one out had that not happened. But then the second one was the inverse. Only when Fireball had control of the point, they didn't sort of let DeToNator have it. And then on the last one, it was just 100-0. So over the course of those 3 games, Fireball progressed. They looked better from map to map. And now that's only the first game of this series. If they look better throughout the whole series, we're headed for a 3-0.
It definitely seems that way. And, Fireball have been 3-0 in DeToNator anyway. So this is really up to DeToNator to prove they can do better than that. Right? It's not up to Fireball to say, their standard is just we will 3-0. DeToNator, it's up to DeToNator to say that's not going to happen anymore. And so far, the trajectory remains the same course as it has been throughout the entire OPC season. So something I'll say about DeToNator, the way they've been playing, is when we watch Saihate on Soldier, and I don't know if this is him or his team, maybe a combination of both, but you just don't get value out of the tag visor in particular. You look at Village.
Struggling.
Look at Village. He comes out with a sort of flank play. He's hiding in sort of the upper spawn-ish kind of room. Runs out. It's like, oh, my team is dead. Plus, we gave up the cap, and I'm not getting any kills. Gone to Sanctum, kind of like the same story again. Just like he's coming out with the tag visor, and they kind of just solo. Just gets really he gets blocked out by Enz and I, and also Tita Watt's there, and it's just where's the support for the guy? Where's his support players? Maybe they're dead, which has been the case as well. So.
Well, and the unfortunate thing as well with the one on Village was basically what happened. It was just a misprediction. He was hiding in one of the rooms and he was expecting Fireball to go through the one just below them. Had Savagod there as well. But because Fireball went around the complete other side of the point, they did that going into a 4 versus 6 because Savagod was with Saihate, and Saihate was on the wrong side of that to really use his tactical visor at that particular moment. And it was a gambit that failed. But it was a very high risk, high reward gambit in the first place, and you can't help but feel that maybe with that tac visor there, you're better off actually just sticking with the team going with something a bit more conventional rather than trying to get a surprise play because you feel the surprise play will be a cleaner fight win.
And at the same time, Village ended up being their best map in the series so far, on Nepal at least, and I almost feel like I expected Shrine to be better because that's when you put Anakin back onto the Genji, you put Saihate on the Tracer, which is, hit or miss, but it's there. And I feel like he was getting more out of the Tracer than he was out of the Soldier, which is surprising because usually he's a better Soldier than he is a Tracer. But at least at the same time, the game mode doesn't really favor the Soldier, so I can sort of see why the Soldier wasn't working. Kind of also why you see Fireball sticking only to Genji Tracer. But then again, it's Fireball. I just see them doing that across the board anyway. So that just was a better game mode, I think, at the end of the day for Fireball. They're a better Tracer Genji type of team. And also on top of that, the DeToNator are not a good enough hit scan Soldier Tracer type of team to make that composition work just yet. If they were Flash Wolves, they make it work. Zonda makes it work, right? If they're AHQ, they make it work. Blank make it work, cool. But right now, it's not really the case. And maybe Tracer Genji would have been the way to go.
Maybe. And now, just kind of going back to something before, speaking to, it's still on DeToNator to pull something out here. That was also their map pick. Now we go into Fireball's map pick. Look, I don't know exactly where they're going to go. This is Fireball. Like, everything is on the table. I kind of want us to go to Eichenwald, in fact, but the onus is on DeToNator, and I feel like from here it only gets harder. They will be able to pick the Assault, but I don't feel like actually picking Assault is necessarily as powerful as being able to pick Control or pick Hybrid, where teams tend to have one map they are a little bit better at than the others. I don't feel like any team really has that on any particular Assault map, so I actually think it's going to be a really tough ask here for DeToNator, even to try and pull off an upset on Assault.
It'll be tough. They would have to pull out something similar to what they did on Tamachi on that initial attack through, where they just get a 5:49 time or something. Which again was
and then
very
shut out Fireball.
Which is then, you know, due to the circumstance of what was happening, but they would need that again. They would need to have a repeat performance. They would need the kind of detonator to come out. The detonator that beat AHQ on Volskaya would be the detonator that needs to come out to win in Assault.
Yes, absolutely. And unlike what happened with Machi, they would then need to be consistently good enough at pulling off that kind of attack. It can't just be a one-off. And you have to have a better defense as well. So, I mean, a lot went right to start with in that Assault, but then also a lot went wrong. It does mean that there is the potential for everything to go right. And we did indeed, like you said, see that on Volskaya when they had the upset against AHQ. But it's not consistent yet. Maybe this is their opportunity to make it consistent, but even so, like I said, I still feel like Assault is actually a hard one to try and push it through on for them, because I would pin Fireball as being a very strong Assault team because of their aggression.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Still going to get past Hybrid first, by the way.
At least it will be their pick, and that's something they can go through. So Kings Row is going to be the pick. We've already seen Kings Row from DeToNator.GOLD tonight. That was against Machi. Now we get to see how it looks like against Fireball. So against Machi, let's talk about what went right and what went wrong. So what went wrong for DeToNator at least was Machi was far more aggressive, had the initiative consistently, and DeToNator was just kind of on the receiving end of that. DeToNator had a couple of moments where they really did punish quite well, so maybe that's something they can rely on, because like we've said, Fireball is also a very aggressive team. Yeah,
and the things that were good, I will say, for DeToNator is they actually did move the payload quite consistently. There wasn't a moment that they got fully stopped up until the very end, up until on that third point, you know, where the payload finished was where they got stopped up. Up until that point, they'd actually been able to consistently break through the defenses. It was these kinds of scrappy skirmishes. It wasn't this complete steamroll where they were getting team wipe after team wipe, but they were also not getting wiped themselves, and they were keeping the payload moving. So there was still a consistent amount of aggression, and key word there being consistent. It wasn't patchy, it wasn't, you know, hit or miss, it was very consistent. So that is what they carry into this, and I do feel like Fireball sometimes struggle on the defense. So that really does help DeToNator come their offense.
It's interesting. I think both teams might actually struggle on the defense here, and both teams have some strengths on the offense. It's hard to pin DeToNator as a better offense or defense team. I would say their offense is slightly better, and that's due to the nature of how they apply Anakin, specifically if he plays the Genji. And on the other front, it's kind of the same for Fireball in the sense you put a Pudo on something like Genji, and then you pair him up with the NZNR, and sparks fly, right? Because that's the magic combo.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, between both of these teams, it is just, you know, whose offense is going to be better. That's why Assault's probably going to be really interesting to see, actually, because it is one of those, you know, when you got two teams that are great at Assault and not as strong in defense, that is where you get those time banks, those double time banks sometimes even. And it can get very exciting. It can come quite close because it comes down to whose offense is slightly better, whose offense is slightly cleaner, slightly faster. And I would say, actually, Hybrid, especially Kings Row, that same thing really does apply. This will be a very different beast to control.
Absolutely. Everything's quite a little bit of a different beast to control. Control is
the most unique.
Control really is, because there's no defined attack or defense. If you've got the cap, you're defending. If you don't have the cap, you're attacking. So it's quite dynamic like that, and it does throw a lot of teams off. And there are teams that specialize in being very good at Assault, like Blank, and then start to fall off throughout the other maps. And you know, for a lot of teams as well, you sort of note them as not being very good at control. Teams that are actually good at control are the ones that with very good traces. Actually,
yeah, that's
which is why you actually see Fireball, when NZNR goes off, they are good at control.
And the other thing as well is momentum on control is very ult-based and ultimate economy-based. It's not space-based like it is.
It's progress-based too.
Yeah, progress-based as well, you're quite right. It's not space-based the way it is for Hybrid and Escort. Though I suppose when the Lunar Colony comes through, there will be space-based.
In the literal sense,
that's a bad joke. Please don't take that analysis to heart there, folks. Fireball, by the way, triple tank and a Pudo on this McCree, so...
That's something we haven't seen for a while.
I do love a Pudo's McCree, though. It is such a joy. And already pick on Sensei. Yoshiharu finding himself a bit deep is going to maybe just lose this mech here. There we go, the last possible minute there. And then they're just going to leave him... Actually, no, they're going to go ahead. They're actually going to decide to close that one up. But in any case, they do hold.
This might end up open up a little bit of a sore spot for DeToNator after just having faced Kiyomi's McCree, which ended up being fairly good in and of itself. So.
Yeah. Based it on Assault, though, slightly different, but I mean, you're right, you know, and they struggled to get past it. By the way, Kurlos is only just rejoining the team here, so Fireball kind of backing up, giving him a
there it
space.
is.
But there's the pick, and this is where the McCree can actually shine, I feel, where often a Soldier doesn't rely on having that high ground quite so much. You've got this triple tank shield comp. Aputo gets the space to go off like this to get these few picks. They do need to go ahead and contest this point here, though, because DeToNator are about to cap it. They don't actually get on it. Oh, dear, they let it go over. That was a little bit sloppy by Fireball after actually executing quite well up until that point. They lose a couple of members on the back end of it as well. Oh, good sleep there.
They may lose more.
That is a good sleep. That's probably going to allow them to retreat here, but it's really just Ninth and Kurlos doing said retreating. They will be able to make it all the way back. Oh, no, dear.
That's why I said there may be more, because it looked like DeToNator weren't ready to give that one up yet. The sleep does buy them time, but doesn't buy enough
Ninth
time.
as well.
That's important because they don't get the grab now, and DeToNator can keep steamrolling through if they want to.
This is that momentum-based gameplay we were talking about, and this is DeToNator getting the momentum on their side. Fireball made a really big slip-up on that first point. They didn't actually choose to re-engage at the right moment, lost their window to do it, and this has just been a domino effect from there.
Still, yeah, and they got 6 ultimates to play with at the same time, and what Fireball are going for that I didn't actually get time to say was they're playing full anti-dive, which is, you want to dive us? Cool. We've got flashbangs, we've got hooks, we've got Persian rods, and they're all good to go.
Yeah, this is Persian rugs, right? This is... Oh, that was an interesting kind of set of trades. It doesn't really affect too much because Fireball is still going to get an opportunity to defend here, but they do kind of need to shut down Saihari again.
Yeah, they got a lot of room to play with now, and 6 ultimates is a lot for DeToNator to go through. So for DeToNator, this is going to be a tech where if they've read the ultimate economy properly, they won't commit too much, but they will still try and play ultless as much as they can.
Yeah, that was a huge charge in, by the way. Committing 2 onto that. The Earth Shatter didn't really do too much for them, but that's all they needed to secure the fight out. But not drawing out any ultimates from DeToNator does mean that it gets a little bit evened up now for Fireball.
They haven't drawn out the Graviton Surge yet, which is still something they've got to play around. The Yoshikaru has to be on top of that at all times. Be able to read where Ninth is, what he's doing. The big deal for Ninth is he's lost all his charge, and some time ago we were looking at him, he was about 90 charge, now on 0. It's really tough for him.
Trying to find the opportunity, but yeah, oh wow, they connected through, so Yoshiharu not quite able to make that one happen. But they don't really have too much to follow it up with. They commit in this Deadeye and, actually that's Amiken's, Dragon Blade. And he is starting to make something work for it, gets the pick onto Enzen now, but they had to commit the whole hog as well. Fireball are still getting the kills through. Look like they are kind of poised to secure this fight, but they need to shut down Amiken and Saihari, who actually are just going to opt to retreat instead. DeToNator didn't want to keep that one going, but they kind of drew all the ultimates left in Fireball's back pocket.
That's actually not a bad fight for DeToNator. I think they got enough, because Fireball was sitting on so many ultimates. It was going to take DeToNator a while to get past all of them, and tank-based gameplay is always going to slow down the game as much as possible. So now we're at this sort of phase where all the aggression gets quite well tempered. We're seeing a lot of what Fireball's actual game plan is, which is you want to play Genji and Tracer. We predicted this. We're going to wait for you to come in. We're going to try and punish as much as we can, starting with Amiken.
Yeah, that's exactly how it's meant to play. And that Pulse Bomb gets completely shut out by the Zarya barrier. So good amount of charge gets into the pocket of Ninth as well, leading out the clock.
And Earthshatter play will be the next on the rotation as well. So we'll have to have a look at what DeToNator's setup is, and not only that, but what the setup of Fireball is in general. You're going to try and go for a hook play against maybe one of the tanks onto DeToNator. It should be a fairly easy Earthshatter because you've just got to play around the bubble.
Wow, another great hook onto Amiken, who was looking to go in with that Dragon Blade. So
there it is.
Nicely reacted in. Yeah, that is a good Earthshatter.
I don't know what it hit.
It didn't hit much, but what it did do is created space. DeToNator had to kind of retreat because they couldn't afford to let DeToNator go in with that nano boost on him again. That's
actually a decent amount of ults used by Fireball for, I would say, not enough kills, because they got Amiken and then Earthshatter kind of, I don't know if that really connected. I would have preferred if that even just hit, if it just hit Sensei to start things off, that would have been pretty good. Now we're going to see Sensei on a Reinhardt of his own, Amiken on the Hanzo is also. We have seen Amiken Hanzo before, actually.
And it wasn't very good, is what I'm going to finish that sentence with. But the ultimates are nearly there for Fireball. Here's going to be a whole hog ready to be committed. But good movement by Yoshiharu to kind of preempt that. They're going to have to wait for another opportunity to use that whole hog now.
Ultimate's back online for Fireball, which is really, really good. Because DeToNator...
Oh, man. That's another Transcendence. Oh, yeah, it didn't get blocked once again, the Graviton. The Transcendence was there defensively, but the whole hog still chews through the members that aren't in it, and the Deadeye counters out the Transcendence. We saw that just there as Apudo channeled that through. This time they do use a lot of ultimates there. They had to commit the whole 3, but again, the fight win is there. The payload hasn't actually moved, and the clock is running out.
The clock is the most important thing to really take notice of, because despite Fireball, you know, maybe they used 3 ultimates in that. No, they actually only used... They did use 3. You're correct. They absolutely did use 3 there. The clock is important because we're only going to get one more push from DeToNator, because DeToNator made late changes. They're still making late changes, by the way, so Hafte on the hog himself. They don't have the ults. It's not like we're in a situation where DeToNator actually charged ults. They're waiting for their own ults, so we're still playing super neutral.
DeToNator did this before. They did this triple tank with the Hanzo, but they also ran Zarya. Yeah, that is the Dragon Strike, using that wall to get it going early, and they do get some kills through with this one. It is the self-destruct that does
nice
it.
Headshot.
Yeah, that is a great headshot onto Apudo, who is otherwise poised to kind of save this fight. Payload is underway, and DeToNator, it may even go into overtime here, but they are just barely going to get the cap through. Unfortunately, NZNR caught on the wrong side of that one, is going to go down as well. So DeToNator, minute and a half to try and get it through to the end now.
And it was good initiation from DeToNator, actually, because they knew they were close enough to ults. They didn't know what ults Fireball were on, and Fireball didn't know what ults DeToNator had either. So a sneaky Dragon Strike comboed with the self-destruct. You flooded the team out. You said it flushed them out, made them run, and the self-destruct caught the people retreating. Just quite clever.
Now they actually don't have really the dive tools to get anyone off this high ground. So when Anakin does get up there, there's no one to contest him. And oh dear, great sleep onto NZNR does mean he's in a bit of trouble.
Doesn't save Sensei.
Yeah, it doesn't save Sensei because the hook had already connected, but I mean, it's something. There's another Dragon Strike to be committed again to try and flush out the team. It does catch rockets, so that is a good start for them, but there's still a window here for Fireball to get kills. The payload's moving, but there still isn't a lot of time for DeToNator. They're going to have to push it to the end in overtime at best.
Yeah, which is a problem because they've already played it into one overtime. They played that one well, so I'll give them that, but the Earth Shatter connects well this time.
That is a huge Earth Shatter, and he started off with a charge. Yeah, counter Earth Shatter just as he got back up from the sleep. That is very unfortunate, and Sensei takes the winner to get a bunch of kills through. Tita struggling a little bit alone on this one, and he does go down. Anakin finally able to connect that shot through. And like I said, there are no divers for Fireball, so Anakin has actually been uncontested up here. The payload is still sort of contested, but it is at least underway. NZNR needs to change his positioning here. Anakin, another Dragon Strike, is going to be able to do a lot of work for them as they look to push it through to the end.
Absolutely, and what Anakin's actually read out well here is Apudo and NZNR, they're playing super slow, and so you're not going to get challenged if you're playing Hanzo. A third Dragon Strike, what he is getting is very quick ultimates.
That one didn't get as much done. DeToNator do still catch a couple of kills through despite the Graviton connecting because no one was able to follow it up. And now Yoshiharu trying to keep everyone as disrupted as possible. Another good Earth Shatter, but they're struggling to follow up on it. The charges in there. Yoshiharu is still a little uncontested, but luckily, Apudo is similarly uncontested. He is able to clean up kills, and there is no one left for DeToNator to contest the card itself. Fireball just barely stop it up.
I guess the trade-up is you pick Hanzo, you can't get contested because your enemy's playing triple tank. At the same time, your Dragon Strikes are not really doing enough work. He got Rocket that one time. The other time, he set up a kill for Yoshiharu. But otherwise, it's not really happening enough for himself. Towards the end there, he had great positioning. He was getting headshots and NZNR, but he's not picking up the kills. The one good kill he got that I noticed was a headshot onto Apudo while he was playing McCree. That's nice, but if you you got to continue doing that. If you can't continue doing that, you're not doing enough. And maybe he should have been playing, I would say, even Soldier or something else.
Yeah, look, not wanting to sound too critical of Anakin because he is an incredibly good player, but it always kind of feels like, I call it solo queue Hanzo, and we've all encountered this. Like, this is meme Hanzo, you know? They pick it up, and you're like, please play something other than Hanzo. They ignore you, and they do nothing. And then they get one headshot, and they feel justified. Look, he is still a really good player. This is obviously a plan they have, but I just feel like there are options that give them more mileage, that do them more favors. This only sort of worked, and even then, DeToNator got stopped up for so long by Fireball in front of that second cap. I find it hard to say that actually, yes, it did work. Look, it barely worked, but it was spending a lot of time not working.
I want to talk about Fireball's sort of composition on defense there as well, because they made a bit of a blunder in that first cap. They made up for it in a big way on Streets phase, which is good. But realistically, with that sort of lineup on first cap, I kind of feel like they could have held up for much, much longer, and they had to do so much extra work on Streets because of that. And when they actually managed to get their composition going properly, you see the effects of it. They knew what they were playing up against. And actually smart by DeToNator to sort of change up themselves. They knew they were playing into anti-dive with the dive composition. They said, well, we're going to play something that maybe punishes this triple tank. That's when they wanted to go for the Hanzo. So good idea, maybe wasn't executed the way they wanted.
Yeah, Titawat was on the scouting Hanzo. Sorry, Ninth actually was on the scouting Hanzo for a moment. Rocket opted to not take that Widowmaker out the gate, didn't actually get that early pick. So now, bit of a role reversal here for these two teams.
Yeah, and actually seeing DeToNator play this is fresh. It's really refreshing because you don't see the sort of composition out of DeToNator, who are very much I would say, a close to dive team, or at least a 2-2-2 team. And we're not even seeing a dive out of Yoshihara. I think that's one of the bigger change-ups.
Speaking of dive here it goes now for Fireball. The pressure is quite unrelenting as well. DeToNator do read it, and they kind of pull back from it. So well reacted to as they get a couple of kills through. Good hook is going to stop the retreat from Titawat, and not going to let happen to them what they did to Fireball on the attack. But the third does go the way of Fireball. Oh, no, hold on. No, it doesn't. That's just a little bit shy.
And something else people kind of forget is...
Oh, hold on, it is a third.
No, it is. They actually did get that.
Okay.
So something other people may forget is Anakin has decent McCree himself. So it's great because he has exactly the same hero pool as Zaputo, which is, again, it makes the duel factor between these two superstar DPSs that much more exciting to see. You've seen Aputo's McCree, now you're going to get to see Anakin's McCree, and it's Anakin's McCree versus Aputo's Genji as well, so always interesting power struggle between these two.
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it, actually, power struggle, because Aputo's McCree did pull a lot of weight, even though the fight went the way of DeToNator on the early one. Ended in a little wide with that pulse bomb. Now, Fireball looking to commit. They had to sort of go for this dive, and again, they're kind of struggling with it. The Transcendence is going to be counted out by Samurai. Great deflect there. Doesn't quite get the kill through, and Anakin will close out on the rest. Anyway, the Graviton is good, and once again, DeToNator, they read it, they retract, and they can counter it out. Another third does go the way of Fireball, so they can maybe still cap through here, but this is actually a much stronger defense out of DeToNator than what Fireball did on point one.
Yeah, they are, but if they lose another third, that's going to be in. What DeToNator have been doing so far is they pull quite far back, so they understand they're playing very heavily to dive, so they pull back into the choke, they play the choke and force Fireball into a bad position, but they also give up a lot of cap percentage. And that means chip away one third, chip away a second third, they can't afford to chip away a third.
Yeah, and I will say, actually, Fireball were doing the same. It's this, they gave away all the thirds at once, and now this is the last push for them to try and get on. The Saihara is a little uncontested still, and with that whole hog, can do a lot of work. So this is a little bit scattered by Fireball. Not as clean an attack by then, but not as clean an attack, defense out of DeToNator.
Nice.
Yeah, that is huge for them, and the kills just barely starting to come through here. They can't afford to step off it, though, because that would actually give the cap over with how close it is. Aputo is looking to try and close this one out, does need to get a Dragon Blade, and there are still members of DeToNator rejoining this fight. They're going to kind of keep this one alive. This is still anyone's, and because both teams kind of mucked up both their attack and then also the defense, it's just an all-out brawl on the point. Aputo has Blade, but Anakin has Deadeye. Who's going to get more? It's Fireball. They get the cap through with the zoning out from the mech.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Fireball eventually, because they got that initial 2/3, like I said, for DeToNator, they couldn't afford to play the sort of back up into the chokeway, re-attack, get better positioning, a sort of game plan that they had with this anti-dive, which eventually you don't have enough progress remaining on the cap, so I kind of felt like it was inevitable for Fireball to just get the cap out. Because DeToNator, they lost, I would say, a lot of their really good tools. The whole hog was kind of non-existent. You talked about the whole hog as maybe a tool they could have had used there. Didn't even get a chance.
And like I said, Fireball their attack was a little bit sloppy, but DeToNator, their defense was similarly sloppy, so it just ended up being scrappy. In a way, that helps DeToNator, purely because it ran down a lot of the clock, but kill for kill there is Anakin trades back onto NZNR. Now he goes ahead to rejoin the fight, forces out the Transcendence, but only getting the trade back onto Yoshihara. This is still, once again, anyone's fight. It's really scrappy, but the payload isn't moving while it's happening, so that is still good news for DeToNator. They are still running down the clock.
I'm expecting Blade at any moment here. Well, he might not even need to use it because he's getting enough damage onto the back line. It just forces everybody out into DeToNator. Now he gets to save it for yet another fight, which is absolutely fantastic from Aputo.
Yeah, that was very disciplined to hold that, seeing that actually the fight was starting to tip in their favor.
So this is good momentum already. DeToNator, if this was DeToNator on attack, I feel like Fireball have already been put in a position where they've gotten this sort of anti-dive setup working quite well for them. This is the final moments of Streets phase now.
Yeah, this is the last opportunity for DeToNator to try and get a defense. Apudo quick commit with the Dragon Blade. He does get one. That's all they need. The deflect again on the Deadeye, and he gets slept. This time Anakin doesn't still get the mileage out of it with that deflect. That was really, really nice by them. And look at that. Point is going to be capped.
Even cleans up the final kill onto Sabagod as well. So far, much cleaner from Fireball and a lot more time to play with as well. DeToNator were already in overtime when this happened, and DeToNator were about to play into overtime again going to third. Fireball have actually room for error here, but I actually expect them to get a full push on through because they're so far ahead in ultimate economy.
Now Fireball, yeah, this honestly got the momentum on their side. We'll have to see if they can actually get that one through. That's
big grab.
Huge. That is so massive. And never mind all that potential for momentum. Fireball get cleaned out.
Well played from DeToNator, and actually you got to question what happened tonight there. He should have been watching out for the Graviton. Maybe it was a sneaky one from old Yoshiharu. We didn't really check his positioning. Speaking of sneaking, Enzina just taking a break on the back line.
Makes it actually really hard to spot him out. That's kind of a cheeky one, but you know what? It is going to work for them.
And Junkrat lying down, right?
Yeah, he's going to be able to take them by surprise. That's a decent Earth Shatter, but he immediately gets shut down after it, so they can't actually afford to follow up on it. And now, yeah, NZNR with that element of surprise is starting to wreak a bit of havoc as they close out on Anakin. They're starting to get the pressure through themselves. Had to commit ultimates to do it, but the payload is underway once again in their favor, and they will actually be able to round this next corner here. Maybe able to push it all the way towards the end now.
Really massive plays from Fireball, and a failed Earth Shadow, unfortunately, from Sensei means, you know, their biggest, I guess, defensive tool just ended up not working. Not a lot of space to play with. You don't even need to get the cap towards the end. Oh, this is going to be a tight finish.
Very much down to the wire. So Hardy has the whole hog, and that could be all the difference. Early pick onto Tita Watt. I think that means Fireball should probably just retreat. I don't want to see them committing a pulse bomb here, but they're going to go for it anyway. Doesn't get the kills. Had he actually got that, he may have been able to sneak the payload through himself. Fireball seem adamant to commit to this anyway, despite losing these members at the top. Apudo with this visor and the Deadeye to counter out. He gets Apudo. Oh dear, Apudo just barely stepping into the sightline, and this time Fireball surely will retreat. Having exhausted all their ultimates, having not got the cap through, they still have a little bit of time for one more fight.
Absolutely, it will be their last one as well. There will be a winner from this. No draws, no ties whatsoever. 45 seconds for Fireball to get it on through, and they'd lose a lot of their offensive tools. So, you know, it's kind of like when we watched DeToNator in the last moments of their push. They start to make these last-minute changes. No ultimate's going to be able to come into play. At least no ultimates on DeToNator's side either. It's going to be a very fresh fight.
Yeah, that's the thing. DeToNator don't really have many ultimates themselves. Oh dear, the Earth Shadow goes wide. That was one of the few things Fireball did have, but they're able to convert a kill onto Sensei. That's a good start, and they catch Yoshiharu's mech. It's starting to come up. Fireball, the hook, the drop off. He actually got the shot before that anyway, and despite that sleep, this payload should start moving any minute now. The respawns are going to try and flood out the bait here for DeToNator, but it's not going to be enough. They're keeping everyone zoned off the point, cleaning up the few members that are getting anywhere near it. The payload moving, goes over the line. Fireball get the cap and are now up 2-0 in the series.
Very well played for Fireball, but have really, I would say, a lot closer than a lot of people may have been expecting. And I kind of say that maybe DeToNator is not a great control team, and Fireball do look like a better control team, being that NZNR is just becoming a very standout tracer. As soon as you get to Hybrid, when we go on to King's Road, that was actually fairly close for them.
Yeah, that actually really was. And the big difference is Fireball got their hold on the second point, whereas DeToNator got it on the first point. And not breaking the first point is a very real danger, and almost was, remember that. The only thing is, it wasn't like they were completely shutting them out. They were giving away a third each and every time. So did still feel like a Fireball, you know, like you used the word inevitable, and I think that was quite an apt word to use. On the other hand, Fireball's defense felt a lot more solid. It felt like it was something DeToNator was struggling to get past. They did end up breaking it, but that's breaking the defense. That's not, you know, successfully chipping away like what Fireball did on the first point there. So on the whole, I do still feel like, even though it came close, Fireball's defense was just that bit better.
It was better, but I would say it could have still been better, because when you look at what DeToNator did on that first cap, that's kind of what you expected from Fireball, because they ran the same lineup. And Fireball gave it away. They didn't even have a chance to play the slow, force you to chip away kind of play style, and you know that ended up buying DeToNator a decent amount of time on that first cap. Fireball got it on the Streets phase, but what if they had done that on the first cap as well, and then held it on the Streets phase? We wouldn't have gone to a third cap together.
Not.
They would have just finished the game.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. This was this was a bit of a tricky one. I think one of the most defining moments actually of that game was the final fight on the first point that Fireball got the cap through on, because like I said, their own offense was a little bit, if you will, misfired. They didn't really dive in an overly coordinated fashion, but DeToNator also didn't respond to it very well either. They were actually caught a little bit unawares. Had that been a properly executed dive by Fireball, would have been an extremely clean fight. Had that been a properly executed defense out of DeToNator, would have been an extremely clean fight in their favor instead. And that speaks to the main issue with both of these teams right now, and that is consistency. I still feel it's more of an issue for DeToNator than it is for Fireball, but it does go to show that it is still an issue for Fireball. They have not actually overcome that, despite having the slightly better record on the whole.
What I actually saw was quite consistent is when you look at DeToNator's defense, it was you defend one cap for a bit, then you eventually lose it. You defend the streets for a bit, you lose it. You defend the last for a bit, you lose it. What was coming out of Fireball was, wow, you just suddenly lost the first cap. Oh, now we get a good one on the streets. Eventually you lose it, and then you get a really good one on third because you bled out enough time into the streets. So
yeah,
it was consistency for defense out of DeToNator, which is it's a lot more standard when you just hold out until the attack really come through, maybe get one really good fight, maybe save up a bunch of ultimates, and you eventually lose it. That's what it should be like, versus what Fireball did on defense, which was abruptly dropping a cap out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then the only major difference is because there was that one point where Fireball did get the hold, like in a very, very micro sense, during that one particular hold, they weren't having the issues of inconsistency. Like, that was consistently being held time and time and time again. But only being able to be consistent on your defense at one certain moment, not being able to set that up consistently, is an equal issue. So that's the thing. There are these two inconsistencies going on, and they're happening in different kind of ways, right? Yeah, DeToNator are getting these more consistent beats, if you will, to the game, but the defense itself is not consistent.
Yeah.
Fireball, opposite side of the coin. But it's still not good enough for either team, and Fireball getting it over the line means that they just kind of end up out-fragging a lot of the time.
And that comes down to the attack, because I think Fireball, to me at least, are the better attacking team at the end of the day. And it showed a lot on Nepal in general, but it shows now onto Kings Row as a hybrid, and it will show again further onto Assault. An attacking team just kind of, and we sort of say both teams are good attacking teams, as in the sense that they more specialized in attack, they're more favored on attack.
They're better at attack than defense.
Exactly, but I think even when you look at both attacking teams side by side, Fireball are just that much better, and that comes down to the fact that I think both their DPSs are able to work together better, and then just sort of be a little bit higher of a grade. Maybe Anakin can match a Pudo, but unfortunately it's, you know, your whole team sort of has to come up as well, and they're also dealing with the fact they've got a couple of new members. They still do look very competitive, and we'll have to find out exactly what that looks like very soon when we do in fact get into Assault. So it feels like deja vu, but DeToNator one more time. Final opportunity to pull it on through. 0-2 is the scoreline. We're going to find out what map number 3 is after this break. All right, thank you for sticking through that, and we're almost ready to go with map number 3 in the series. It's DeToNator.GOLD versus Fireball. Currently 0-2 the scoreline in favor of Fireball. Second time we've been here tonight, unfortunately for DeToNator, and it may end up in another 0-3 unless Assault, which at least now is DeToNator's pick, they can bring it on back through.
Yeah, it was DeToNator's pick, and we felt in the Matchy series it was the place they were most likely to get an upset as it was, and they almost did. They couldn't quite get it past the gate there, but I will go out on a limb and say Matchy are a tougher team to face than Fireball. So getting it close against Matchy would say maybe you can get it there against Fireball, and they did get it there at one point against AHQ. So maybe they can actually pull an upset here. I'm curious to see where they opt to take this one too, though. I do just kind of expect us to go back to Temple of Anubis, but maybe they want to go to Volskaya instead, where they were able to take out the win against AHQ.
Yeah, I think DeToNator's other map that they've been kind of going to a lot was Hanamura, and I would say that's maybe
the sombreless Hanamura.
Exactly, it's that or Sunsis to do it as well. I think both the teams actually do like to go to Hanamura a decent amount, as Easy likes to say, the double home advantage. So always got that going for them.
Double home.
But one thing about these,
you got your house and your summer place. Double home. And your summer place. Home. And your summer place happens to be in Hanamura. What a beautiful location.
Yeah. My uncle likes to buy 2 houses in the same place. My home and my other home, like
it's my home, like next to each other on the street. That's my home and that's my home.
Double
it's like in Scott Pilgrim, he's like, but do you want to see the house where I grew up? And it's like right across the street.
Oh my God.
that's exactly my home and my other home. Gonna go over to my parents for dinner.
What I wanted to say was that both teams, like we've already mentioned, are attack-favored teams, being that they're better at attacking than they are defending. So that being said, you kind of do have this interesting dynamic that kind of makes it exciting, which is maybe you get into the time bank, you're pretty much guaranteed to get into time bank, and maybe even double time bank. And it's one of the few times you do see that double time bank because you get two good attacking teams that are kind of maybe not so good on the defense.
And that's the thing, that is exactly what we nearly saw with Machi. We are, in fact, though, going to go to Hanamura, so there you go, you're actually right on the money there. Like I say, the sombreless Hanamura.
Yeah. No President Volsky on that one.
Just Schmata Clan. And where's that guy with the pompadour?
I don't know. He's not going to sign you a deal with lots of mix or anything like that.
But that's my favorite. That's my absolute favorite.
Poor guy's
I suppose side character in any of the cinematics is the security guard on Hanamura who like fumbles with the cell phone. By the way, how does he manage to do that? Like, it's not too hard. He just like pulls it out. He's like, like what a moron security guard. But that dude has the most intense pompadour I've ever seen, and like. I can't help but respect it, eh? He like bumps into the bell and his hair is pristine. Like his hair is undamaged. It's made of iron.
Unlike that cell phone, unfortunately. I hope maybe his boss
the cell
that
phone
one.
his hair is stronger than cell phones.
There it is.
His cell phone was his cell phone's a Motorola, but his hair is made of Nokias.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to see which team
has the stronger hairdo.
That's one way to put it. That's definitely one way to put it. I would say. We're not going to see any Sombras. Are we going to see? Are we going to see some? Likely to see maybe Torbjorns on the defense here. We're going to see maybe. We've already. The thing is, now that we've seen Kings Row, what has opened up our eyes a little bit is both teams are willing to go for that triple tank.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a Kings Row only thing. Maybe it's a specific thing for that map, or maybe they'll bring it out here because other teams have also gone for that. AHQ being the, I guess, the team in mind that does typically go for the triple tank. On even a map like Hanamura, if they even do that. They've even sort of kind of drifted away from that now, but I mean, traditionally they have been that team, and now we're seeing that maybe these two teams are also willing to do that.
Yeah, so I think it's a very real option, and also that Torbjorn is a real option as well. One of the benefits of Hanamura is it absolutely is an assault map where you can comfortably put the Torbjorn down on both points. Often on other assault maps, the trade-off is after you lose the first point, you kind of have to swap off the Torbjorn. And often that person does swap onto the Sombra, so it's kind of mitigated a bit. Sombra's not a factor here. Torbjorn is still good on second point defense. And that actually kind of helps, I think, both of these teams to an extent, but I can't help but feel like it helps DeToNator just a little bit more. They do like putting Dotlov on Torbjorn at times, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they go with this. They do have actually used both of their supports on that Torbjorn, just by the way, but now with Sabagod in the mix, don't know if he will pick up a Torbjorn. I would assume if they run one, it will be Dotlov.
Also seems like DeToNator now with Sensei on tank are far more willing to play with the Reinhardt versus when Samurai D was on, you predominantly saw the Winston. That's kind of because of the meta. That's also because the playstyle DeToNator were adopting at the time. But with Sensei in the mix now, we've seen more Reinhardt than I believe we've ever seen out of DeToNator in, like, I guess, a single series at least.
You're actually completely right there. It's not really something I noted too much because we talked a lot earlier in the tournament about some of the tanks that could play the Winston and were struggling on the Reinhardt. Funnily enough, on Fireball, Rocket was exactly one of those once they kind of figured out that getting him on the Winston and running the dive was a good way for them to go. But you're completely right, actually, about that difference, if you will, in who is willing to run those Reinhardts. And to say the same here now, Fireball have been more comfortable running it with T2Watt as well. So it is a very real option for both of these teams now. And we do sometimes see Reinhardt here on Hanamura.
Absolutely, and it's, again, mainly coming out of AHQ. They're the team that typically likes to go for the heavy tanks. What is interesting is other teams willing to play more Soldier here, because I think this is a better Soldier map than it is a Genji map. Typically, you'll see Soldier throughout the entire way through. Attack, defense, camp 1, camp 2. It's Soldier all the way.
Yeah. Generally speaking, yeah. And actually, both teams are going to come out the gate with a Soldier. By the way, where did he get the jacket? It's got his number on it. Or did he get the jacket? And that's why he called himself Soldier 76.
Like, what number am I going to be? Let's take a look. Oh, 76.
Yeah, just found like this really cool jacket in an op shop. He's like, I could build an identity around this. And then in case Fireball already kind of getting through this first little chunk. They're kind of setting up around the side, trying to find that opening. No Torby on the defense, by the way, and now Enzin are trying to get the aggression on here.
Like I said, DeToNator are far more willing to play the Reinhardt. That's exactly what they're going to do.
Boy.
Nice helixes. That's going to make the defense for Fireball that much more difficult to play around.
Yeah, I mean, who's even contesting this point right now? Luckily, Apudo is still a little uncontested on this ground here, but he's not got great sightlines onto the point. And
now he's contested.
Yeah, now he's very much contested by Saihati. He's able to keep his health topped off, but he's still going to be getting pressured out by Saihati, so he's losing those sightlines altogether. Now DeToNator going down. Fireball have stalled this for a long time, but it seems that the floodgates are open now. All the kills are starting to come through DeToNator. They're well enough set on this point, and they had got the pressure on all the members of Fireball, had forced them out of this position, and now they're going to get the cap.
And the interesting thing is, you know, for DeToNator playing a triple tank composition, where they're weak at is playing in the open space. Where they're strong in is playing that small, closed space with the chokes. And as soon as they got on the actual cap, they actually had control of the point itself, control of the actual objective, and forced the cap through. Secondly, bad position for Fireball.
They staggered out the death on 9th. Now they're going to go ahead and try and snowball onto the point. Sound Barrier was a little bit too late to save Anakin, but they could still do this if they could secure a couple of kills quickly. If not, they should actually just retreat. And Apudo up on this high ground, now with the nano boost, does mean that they should be able to secure a good number of kills through. And now DeToNator rather, going to commit a lot of ultimates quite late in the fight. Fireball now going to commit more of their own to close it out, and this does ultimately favor Fireball because of that respawn advantage for themselves. So DeToNator lose their opportunity to get a snowball going and do get repelled.
Yeah, they went in quite quick. They're trying to do, I guess, what AHU kind of did to Machi, right? Or AHU did to Hong Kong Attitude, rather, which is just run on through as quickly as possible and get that lightning speed cap on through. They didn't even get a third, which is a little bit disappointing. With the amount of speed they came on through, I want to say that Saihate's positioning with the team, unfortunately, was not good. Maybe had DeToNator played more of a high ground, given Saihate the positioning that Apudo had, that would have been far better. At least now they get rid of Apudo, so put Saihate on the same spot.
Yeah, good catch onto Apudo, you're quite right. Yeah, so that opens this one up for them. They are going to go ahead and commit. The whole hog, though, is mostly getting absorbed by 9th, who should be able to get out of this. Actually, no, good follow-up there by Sensei to close that kill out. And now they're actually in a good position to do this. Saihati doesn't actually quite at that high ground, which is unfortunate, but killing NZNR means they should certainly be able to get the third out of this. Good stall by DeToNator with that ultimate running, but it's not really enough. So the third goes through, and now Fireball, they're kind of having to go all out on this one. Self-destruct does cause a little bit of zoning, catches Dodlov, but they're able to get some good kills through anyway. Yoshiharu actually lost the mech as well in that one. Saihati gets blown up by the pulse bomb though, so they don't quite get that second, third through, and will get repelled by that defender's advantage.
The second time around as well, you really want to see Saihate on that high ground where
what a sleep.
This is going to be a bit of a stagger kill, which is unfortunate for DeToNator. They always have these great starts in these second cap fights, but they can never close it up because they don't have enough gas to actually beat the respawners. They can beat the original Fireball members on the cap in the first fight, but there will always be a second wave of players respawning from Fireball that you got to contest with. It's like a 6v11 scenario.
I mean, you started saying that yesterday, and it's probably the most apt way of describing defender's advantage I've ever heard. Like, you need to wipe, and then you need to be well enough positioned that you could win a second fight as well. And so far, DeToNator have actually struggled to do that. You can just play for thirds instead, in which case you don't necessarily need to wipe, but you do need to have positioning. And right now, DeToNator have struggled to do a little bit of both, really.
So they got the 1/3 through. So what they can do is play for that. They can play for the chip game, which is really interesting. At least they're not going to be able to do much of this fight there because they're getting kind of picked apart by Inzidot, which is really unfortunate. Pulse bomb open up through. Now a lot more kills. 3 members alive, losing mech as well. This is starting to turn into a real disaster.
Yeah, didn't spot it out at all. They actually got quite a good time in the bank for the first half of this. They had about 6 minutes. Now about half of that has been run down, and it's just been, you know, a combination of getting shut down when they go for the big fights, and then sometimes shut down before the fights break out. And it just means that, look, no matter how it's happening, Fireball are always coming out the better of these engages. DeToNator are actually not looking particularly clean right now.
And DeToNator are changing up lineup now. Saihate's moved on to the Tracer after playing Soldier, and I don't know, he was doing good enough on Soldier. It was just that they never really propped them up in a good enough positioning. Now they're playing for top right. They should have been doing this when he still had the Soldier.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit odd. There was even opportunities when they kind of forced Apudo off and didn't take the ground themselves. Good early picks, though, once again. They catch Rocket and close out on Apudo as well, who is a little zoned off to the side. So they're trying to take the space now, but they're taking it up with their healer. They do commit to the fight, and they may be able to get a second, third off this if they can convert some kills early, which does seem to be the case this time around. Very nice wipe for them. Yeah, haven't lost anyone yet. So hard to get a little pressured, but with the recall, will be able to top himself off. The contest has been there so far, though, so they haven't actually got that second, third through, but now looking poised to do so. so they may actually be able to close this one out here, but there are some good respawns for Fireball. Good catch in the base, though, out of Sensei, stopping Aputo from reinforcing, and he had a good swing ultimate there. DeToNator now has to buy a ton of time for his team, and Rocket swapping onto the mate to try and do the same. But Fireball, oh, good catch onto Sabagod, but they'd already given up the win condition. It didn't really matter, and honestly, Widowmaker, not the right pick to contest the point itself, and it does go through to DeToNator.
Yeah, exactly. You get the kill, but by the way, your cap went through, so that was a little bit disappointing. So
Oh,
that
well
last
done.
fight for DeToNator was exactly the kind of fight they were hoping for, and that's the way you want to be able to attack in if you're the attackers, which is get a bunch of kills, don't lose any members, which kind of goes without saying, but at the same time, the importance of that is essentially you have to play against respawners, which they did, and they had enough players that the respawners trickled in because they sort of staggered out each, because it's not like they wiped the entire team, got a bit of cap through, and then all 6 members of Fireball came back. It's like 3 members of Fireball alive, the other 3 were respawning, they just kept swapping, so it was a constant 6v3 the entire time. And if Fireball had gotten some trades, they could have made that a lot more manageable, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. All it actually would have taken for Fireball would have been a trade kill or 2. I mean, getting Sabagod was the right kind of thing, but it was too late, and that's the unfortunate thing. So, that's terrifying. The good play there actually by DeToNator, once they had set themselves up on the point, because I was talking about this just before, saying they'd kind of struggled to do it. Once they had got that initial breakthrough there, they set themselves up on the point such that it was hard for Fireball to kind of get back on it. That is what you have to do if you want to get that full cap out. And then they used their ultimates wisely. You know, we saw Sensei commit the Primal Rage to stop Aputo from getting to the point and stop anyone else from coming out that one side of the base. And then the rest of the team can deal with anyone who comes out the other side of the base.
Exactly. He played the shield really well as well. He focused on shutting Aputo down, and because Aputo's positioning was such that he was stuck in his base, because he put the bubble down, Aputo was like, oh, I can't really go through here. Don't have enough time to try and go through the other way. You got to fight through everyone anyway. Comes back through after the bubble's gone, straight into a Primal Rage, ends up dying, and a whole bunch of time wasted. So, well played by DeToNator at the end of the day. That was a well-executed attack.
Yeah. Totally called it, by the way. DotLov is indeed going to be on Torbjorn.
And Sensei still onto the Reinhardt, so I mean,
Yeah,
DeToNator, they want to stick to this. This is the kind of composition that's going well for them.
Well, if it ain't broke.
And don't try and reinvent the wheel, guys.
Especially if the wheel ain't broke.
Much.
What would reinventing the wheel be like?
I don't know, it'd be turned into a hexagon.
I can't really... A hexagon. If physics just spontaneously changes, hexagons turn out to be better than circles for wheels. But anyway, this is getting weird. And the turret is consistently being shut down here, which is quite good. Now DotLov is going to have to go right around to this other side, and he's actually barely keeping himself alive while this is all happening as well. He is, they're trying to protect his turret, and they are just barely able to do it. Yeah, very early pulse bomb, and they are starting to get the hurt down onto DeToNator, but Fireball are kind of losing a lot of members themselves. Aputo going down there is the crucial thing. DotLov is like, I could shoot the enemy, or I could keep getting this turret up, but in any case, Fireball are actually being repelled here. They do cap a third through, but very nicely held.
Very nicely held. And again, just not enough trades for Fireball. DeToNator managing to hold on. A lot of health bars, a lot of shielding. Even with the turret you always have to consider. So actually, you know, as much as you're saying like, yeah, I'm not going to shoot very much, I'm going to get the turret back up. You have to force, everyone has to be forced to deal with the turret at some stage. The turret kept on coming up.
Yeah.
It's like having the 7th player there that Fireball always have to
You
consider.
got to do something about it over and over, you're quite right. And while they're doing that, they can't actually be shooting DotLov. So in a way, it doesn't matter how low DotLov gets sometimes if the turret has to be shut down.
He can heal himself
too. A little bit, yeah, with that armor there. Now the re-engage going to come in from Fireball. There aren't really many ultimates here from DeToNator though, luckily for them. But they will have the whole hog and, oh, no Molten Core, never mind.
Yeah, that's a bit of a disappointing thing to play with. Now that the turret will be standing for DotLov, and actually, if DeToNator can keep the turret alive, that's something they can sort of use here. Aputo should be using Tech Visor at some stage.
He really should, and that was actually a good opportunity to do it. They've now lasted out this whole hog, though, so they're willing to go aggressive. DeToNator, he does get hooked up, but it doesn't matter. He's still keeping these DeToNator members kettled off to the side. Aputo can still use this Visor to close this one out if he wants. Yoshiharu dies despite the nano boost, which is kind of awkwardly committed. And now DeToNator are actually just feeding a ton of ult charge. It turns out Aputo was right to hold on to that ultimate, because all Fireball needed to use for that in the end were the 2 defensive ultimates from the supports and the Primal Rage.
If we really started with DotLov dying to Aputo, that was really crazy Helix rocket placement. As soon as he went down, the Molten Core was so important. Now Fireball, I expect Fireball to do the kind of attack that I wish DeToNator did, which is essentially set Aputo up on the high ground, really get mileage out of this tactical visor, and then just never let anyone touch him.
That would absolutely be the ideal. And you're already picking the turret off, so this is good pressure, and this is him being set up on that high ground. It does mean they have to commit another member to kind of keep him shielded, keep him alive, lest the turret do work.
Bam.
Oh, big
Turret.
boom. Ends it enough. That was the ideal target for him. Now they are all over this point. Aputo is set up on that high ground. Tac buys are out to start securing the kills through, and they're all over this point now. Have to stop the respawners as they come through, but geez,
kills.
that is huge. They are on the point now. It has to be respawns for DeToNator as they try and flood out the gate. They have a Molten Core, but no such luck. Already shut down, and they can't contest it at all. The Earth Shatter is there, but no one able to follow it up. And Fireball kick the door down. Come on in, steal your flat screen. I don't know.
And your turret.
Yeah,
and your Molten Core.
Steal your flat screen, steal your wife, shoot your dog, and then they foreclose on your house. Like, they absolutely flattened them at the end there. That is exactly what we mean when we say snowball. And I didn't even feel like they had a ton of snowball tools going into that. There were good defensive ultimates available for DeToNator. Just Fireball executed so well.
Like I said, Fireball did what I hoped DeToNator would do. And if you're DeToNator now, you need to take some notes, because this is how you execute a soldier-based attack. At your other house, because your other one's been foreclosed. So you got to go next door.
Your house has been foreclosed. Good thing you weren't that second home.
Yeah, so for Fireball, like what they did, it's pretty simple. You go in, you take a high ground advantage, you sit Aputo onto the high ground, he's got Tech Visor, he's unopposed because, by the way, the defense is still running triple tank. It's not like they're running anything that can really touch Aputo. Yeah, Anakin went onto the Genji at the end of the day. He got wrecked by that Tactical Visor, as did everyone else. And by the way, that Molten Core, Pulse Bomb shutting down Dotoloff and the turret at the same time.
Yeah.
The Molten Core never came out until the end when it just wasn't going to do anything anyway.
Because he couldn't get a turret.
Dotoloff held onto Molten Core the entire time. He had a really rough game on defense.
Yeah, he really did. And it's because he didn't really suspect that Enzin and I would come around the side. I feel like you should, because, like, that's the dream Pulse Bomb placement, really, when you've got it up and there is a setup Torbjorn on the other team. And now Fireball have about 2 minutes extra over DeToNator for this, for their own attack, and DeToNator don't have much time to even get a first cap through.
Absolutely. So there it is. And Aputo was such a factor. The rocket kill onto Dotoloff to start things off, then Enzin with the Pulse Bomb kills as well. So maybe Dotoloff has a better game this time around. That
is a very good open, though, out of DeToNator, getting another one onto that. And meanwhile, Enzin, he put a lot of pressure onto Sabagot. It finally pays off, but honestly, the rest of his team is getting really aggressive on. He's got a hard ask ahead of him if he's going to get anything done here. Kurlos able to pick up a kill on the backside, but Fireball just kind of have to retreat anyway.
Oh, wow. Good
pick
turnaround.
Anakin. That might be a winner to re-engage, but I don't think they're too willing to. I think they just want to maybe back off. Oh, they're going for the contest. Enzin blink for it, but he gets taken out straight away by Yoshiharu. That was maybe a bit of a mistimed commit there, and now they need to be careful that they don't get steamrolled themselves.
That's 150 HP they didn't need to give away to Yoshiharu, I feel. I mean, he was guaranteed dead. He's
Triple
one
DPS,
guy.
by the way. Triple DPS.
From DeToNator, you're absolutely right. So this is when triple DPS works, which is you got enough damage that Fireball don't know what to do with it. Well, Fireball don't know how to deal with it, rather. Yeah. Where's the initial placement, though? So DeToNator, they have to know, how do they want to attack this one? They've got a soldier, but they don't have the tanks to really go for the high ground.
Oh, the sleep goes wide and Kurlos loses his life, but DeToNator are being shut down anyway. This is the volatility of triple DPS. I mean, it's unbridled aggression when it's going, but it gets shut down very quickly when it's failed.
And the problem here is, we've said already, nice headshots. We've said already, but you can't go even trades. And the problem with triple DPS is you almost always go even trades. You don't have enough defensive capabilities to keep everyone alive. So when you attack, you lose somebody on your own side. If you're playing Assault, playing against respawners, that's going to work against you over time.
Yeah, the only thing you have to keep your team alive are those defensive ultimates like Transcendence and Sound Barrier, which are nearly up to their credit, but I don't know if they're going to be able to, like, if they fail, they're not going to get a second run of them. They've only got a minute.
Rocket's like, yep, found him.
Here we go. Well, hello, there's those trades, by the way, already getting Sabagot, so no Transcendence to come out. Enzin will tickle himself pleased with that. Anakin going aggressive now, looking to find Knight. There was a little bit up on the high ground. They do trade back onto Sensei, but this is actually DeToNator fairly set up on here. There will be attack visor for Yoshiharu, but not if he gets taken out. Oh, that is huge for T1. That gives them a window to get back onto this point, to stop the full cap coming through for DeToNator. Anakin is trying to do his best to keep this one alive for his team, but it gets closed out upon. The respawns are going to come through now for Fireball. About 20 seconds left for DeToNator, means maybe they scrape through one attack, but it's not looking easy.
And like I said, they cannot ever get an attack through without losing members of their own. And eventually, Fireball overwhelmed me with respawners, which is exactly what happened. Anakin had a great start. He had multiple kills. That's as good of a start as you want, realistically. this is it now. They got support ultimates, which is something they really need. This is the only way they can actually close out this game.
All right, well, it's Sensei on the point with the Primal Rage. He was the only one who could get there in time, but it means he gets taken down a lot of health already, but it's just enough. Sabagot is able to commit now with this Transcendence. It forces out the stand barrier from the defenders, who are really just trying to scatter around this point, get any picks they can. Need to be careful not to get picked themselves, getting a Puto down, but there we go. The response kills. That's what they need to close it out. DeToNator, they do push an extra 10% onto their maximum in that final push, so they can at least walk away with something gained from this. Anakin trying to get a few over the line at the last minute, but it's not going to happen. Overtime ticks down, and 54.8% is the time to beat for Fireball.
Yeah, man, I think Fireball should be looking pretty good to beat that. They got a ton of time to work with. 54 is not really
By the way,
that much.
when I say time to beat, I mean time on the point. Like, percentage is not time. 54%, that's the time to beat. Oh dear.
What's the time? It's about 54%.
About 73%. Like if you do it as like how far the hand is around the clock, I guess that makes sense, but that would
Is that
not...
AM or PM?
Yeah. That A% or P%?
Yeah, pretty much. So, like I said, for DeToNator, the volatility of triple DPS is, I felt, kind of risky for them. They were kind of relying on explosive snowball plays to really get them across the line, which, in order for that to happen, somehow by miracle, none of your members die. None of your 3 DPSs die, and you can just continue killing players as they're walking out. And that may have worked had Saihate not got taken up by DeToNator early on, because it was a good response by DeToNator, by the way, to take down Saihate, because when Apudo was up there, he just kind of won the game for Fireball, uncontested. Anakin tried right into attack visor. That's not the way to go. If DeToNator just did what they did on their initial attack through on the first turn, with Saihate on the trait on the soldier, but they just do it the same way Apudo played with Fireball, I mean, that's kind of the key to victory. I don't see why DeToNator have to change anything, try something weird.
All right, well now, Fireball, a lot of time in the pocket to push this one through. It is going to be on DeToNator to either full hold or lead out this clock as best as possible so that the full hold is easy. See if they can do it.
Still going to be playing the old Reinhardt for Fireball, so no, for DeToNator as well, so.
Ooh, nearly got the closeout onto Kurlos, but unfortunately
This
not
is
quite.
dangerous.
Slips away with his life, but that was not... Oh, wow!
He doesn't.
Kurlos wants revenge, and yeah, Saihate does not slip away with his life. Now, actually, Fireball are going to barrel on to this point. They need to convert a couple more kills through to really sort of secure this one. They aren't finding it too easy. Ninth getting very hard pressured here, but there we go. That's the pressure onto Sensei to make it happen. Ninth is able to keep himself alive, and now the pressure coming through for Fireball. It is on DeToNator to try and find a way to re-engage, and it is not easy.
Oh, got Bionic Grenade Eater as well.
Wow.
That could have been something they could use to really get in there, but everyone's just going to die here. Fireball got so much time to play with. I don't see a recontest. And there's no ultimates on DeToNator anyway, so...
I mean, a recontest would be a terrible idea.
We're looking at another snowball play for Fireball, which is really scary.
It is scary, but they do still have to execute on it. And honestly, it is the minority of times that these snowballs do actually come to fruition, unfortunately. So we'll have to see if it can be done for Fireball. Even so, 54.8 is the percent to beat. They don't have to get the full push through. They can just play for thirds.
This Tracer duel is really interesting because they're both fighting over the health pack, but neither of them really wants to get stuck.
No, neither of them are going for the health pack itself. And while that's happening, Fireball crack open the point, looking to set themselves up for a third. Saihate now has to rejoin the fight, but Apudo is set up on the high ground that is going to spot Saihate as he comes in. This is the tack visor once again. Where have we seen this? It is where the snowball happened last. And that's the full rack of ults. He's trying to compete with his own player of the game. They've already done it. Boom, shakalaka. All the hot dogs for Fireball.
Yeah, like I said, you know, I kind of just spelled it out for you. This is, I said this is exactly what's going to happen. Fireball are going to do this. They're just going to repeat their exact same performance.
2 snowballs
play
in a row.
Apudo on the high ground. Play for the snowball. Bam! You couldn't write it better.
You really could, and like you said, adds the attack that DeToNator wish they had, and the fact that Fireball did it twice in a row, it's not a fluke. It's just good play. It's well set up. It's not read. It's not reacted to.
Apudo got none of the play.
That is so rough. This better be a sick play, by the way, to dislodge both of those. I'm not allowed to say that word on a broadcast. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. Yeah, it is one thing to not be able to pull off that same attack on your offense when, like you said, actually DeToNator could have. It is another thing to not deal with it in the defense either.
You should have predicted it.
Yeah.
You knew what composition they were running. You knew what situation it was.
Exactly. That was, I mean, even if the other ones were tight for various reasons, and Fireball were just barely the better. That one there on Assault was a deserved loss for DeToNator. They did not play that adequately. They did not react to what Fireball were doing. Shame on me if you fool... Sorry, shame on you if you fool me once, shame on me if you fool me twice is the saying. Not the other way around. And shame on DeToNator for being fooled. And fireballed.
You got fireballed.
You got fireballed.
You got lethal.
Got both of their houses burned down.
Twice in a row. So, I mean, it was super well executed by Fire. Watching that being played out was like, that is exactly what you got to do.
You're
that
just
is just, but when you...
When the snowball connects just right.
When the snowball connects just right.
Oh, that was beautiful. That really was absolutely gorgeous.
Twice in a row, Zion. The second one, like
yeah.
you said, it's like Caputo's competing for his own player of the camp because...
it was the exact same thing.
We watched it.
Actual
we watched
exact
it. It
same
was like,
thing.
where have we seen this before? Because they
Ever get that feeling of deja vu? It really did. Like, it was such a... I almost want to compare the kill feeds on both. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if we had, like, some real Twilight Zone thing going on and he got the kills in the exact same order. Like, that is how similar it felt.
And this time it was even faster because they only need to get 54%.
Yeah.
Last time they had to get the 400. This time 54? Nah.
Yeah, you don't actually get that second wave of respawners at that point. So it's not that 6 versus 11 you often talk about. It is actually just a 6 versus 6. So when you get a kill or two and tip the scales in your favor, and then you got something like Attack Visor to close it out, yeah, easy peasy, I'll take that one home. And without any trade kills coming through, look, if you do get a couple of trade kills if you're DeToNator, then maybe you can just barely scrape through and survive. Maybe you do get one respawn through because you're contesting. But they didn't. They frankly did not.
It's actually very easy for DeToNator to have held out against the attack. All they needed to do was, you're playing a Reinhardt, you're playing tanks, go, not even that. I mean, yeah, yes, that,
Yeah.
but not even that. Because,
But actually just deal with the soldier.
well, no. Well, yes and no, because the way you deal with it is you deny the ground to start with. So you know they're going to push up that top right section. So you meet them there. You block that entire stairwell. What are they going to do? They can't play their game plan. Then you play that choke. You can play the choke better because you got more tanks. You got more health to burn through. And then you force Fireball to play a different area of the map. You kind of force Fireball to play, if you're DeToNator, where you had to play, which is on the ground.
Yeah.
You said, that's not going to work for you. That's not going to work for you nearly as well. And then when Fireball are on the ground, that's when you pounce on them. And
the silly thing is, you actually pointed this out, on their own attack, the first time around, DeToNator, they had this really great moment where they dislodged Caputo from the high ground. Saihara had his tactical visor, was about to go onto that high ground, and then kind of dropped off. Don't know if it was an accident or not, but in any case, it happened, and it really cost them. It cost them basically the 2 minutes that Fireball did have over them when it came to time bank.
It's tough. Actually, to my memory, Saihara never even tried to get on high ground. It was actually a team play. It was a team play where they, as a team, never really tried. Yeah. They tried to do what AHQ...
It just happened to be a possibility once, even though they weren't even planning for it, and they still didn't take it.
I saw what it was. They tried to do what AHQ did at Hong Kong Attitude, which is just run through and cap it out, which it wasn't the same scenario at all to start with, but they wanted to play for the rush. And that's okay, I get that. I get what they're trying to do there. They went on through ground level, just directly on the point. Just get on the point, start capping it. Cool, maybe you sneak out a third, right? That's kind of what they were going for. And they never went for a setup play. The setup play is more like, we're looking to get more here. This is not a gamble. This is a slow, patient setup versus a gamble, which is what DeToNator did, which is we're going to run and try and sneak out a little bit of cap time and then just snowball our way through if possible, and it's very different.
Yeah, and I suppose look, this is another 3-0 now for Fireball, another 0-3 rather for DeToNator, and the thing that we can really take away from this is, look, single map upsets or no, DeToNator are where they deserve to be in the standings, and that is a fact. If you couldn't even pull off that single map win against Fireball, then the ones you did get against AHQ, the ones you have got on other places, earlier on, they have been one-offs. I don't like to use the word fluke because that implies that, luck is some major factor in this game. That is not at all the case. This is still a skilled team, but they are one-offs. And there are reasons, individual reasons for each of those one-offs. That is the nature of a one-off. And they're not even consistently doing it. So they have so much to fix still. If you can't even get that particular map won time and time again, if you're only getting it as one-offs, then yeah, like I said, you are where you deserve to be in the standings. And where that is second from the bottom, having only beaten the team below.
All right, let's take a look now. Player of the game goes to NZNR for his tracer play. I would say across the board. every single map. It's just been a great tracer. You might have even thought about giving it to a Pudo onto the Soldier because he had some fantastic moments. I'm not even talking about the tactical visor, but let's consider one of their first attacks. Helix Rocket takes down Dodolov, doesn't even get the Molten Core, then comes around the second time as well. Inzunar kills Dodolov with the Pulse Bomb, doesn't get the Molten Core, so just a really tragic game for the guy in general, but Apudo really opened up the first cap himself.
Yeah. As I think it's hard to actually pick which of those two DPSs you would give man of the match to be honest with you, because they both pulled a ton of weight in equal measure and often at the same time. And I feel like that is actually a strong mark of a team. I mean, Apudo, we often pin him as the superstar player, but honestly, NZ and I have stepped up so much over the course of this tournament. And sometimes we have these teams where, you know, okay, if one DPS doesn't do it, the other one does, and vice versa. But having a team where both DPSs can actually be executing well at the same time is a really strong, really powerful thing. And if they can just bump up that consistency just a touch more, I really do still feel like there is a lot of innate strength in Fireball.
We'll find out exactly how much innate strength they have, because guess what? They're going to play against Blank next. And that's going to be a challenge. So Blank is still a very tough team. We talk about like a Fireball, they're looking great. Pudo's looking good. Inzunar's looking good. DeToNator.GOLD's fitting into the team. The entire team as a general. This is again, we're now about to see their first big test. We've seen DeToNator.GOLD now against a bunch of other teams in the competition. You've seen them against DeToNator. You've seen them against the last week as well. Can't remember who they played. It wasn't one of the top
Someone
teams.
like Hong Kong Attitude or Matchy.
No, maybe. No, I think it was
Sun
against, it might have even been against Sun Sister, to be really fair. And in fact, it was, because Sun Sister already said they've lost to Fireball, which means they now only have a chance to take their last match against DeToNator.
And they had won that as well. So if it had been against Matchy or Hong Kong Attitude, it would have been a loss, but they did actually win it.
So here we go. This will be the first big test of Fireball's new and improved lineup against one of the top 3 teams, no less, a playoffs team, one of the best playoffs teams, and we're going to have to find out exactly what that looks like, because a lot of questions. They look good against the Japanese teams. What about against Blank?
And the thing is, even a loss but a good showing would actually bode well for coming up against Matchy and Hong Kong Attitude. And that would still be a significant thing in and of itself, because both Matchy and Hong Kong Attitude are, you know, still tickling and challenging these top 3 teams. Hong Kong Attitude more so, but, you know, we felt that they are still a little bit...
They're tickling aggressively.
Yeah, aggressive. Good heavens. They are, you know, we do still feel like Fireball are a little bit within striking distance of these teams. So yeah, a good showing against Blank, no matter what the result is, would say, look, maybe they can do it against Matchy. A bad showing, maybe they could still do it against Matchy. An upset, they can beat Matchy. Pure and simple.
Pretty much. That'd be, if an upset, they can probably even beat, I mean,
AHQ.
I don't know if I go that far, but yeah, it's interesting.
Hong Kong Attitude did it. They upset AHQ, then they upset Blank,
Hong
and then they beat
Attitude
HQ.
can do it, anybody
yeah.
can.
Just got to get the right attitude. Got to get that Thailand attitude. The Bangkok attitude.
Just land in Hong Kong one day. It's like, what is your business here? I'm looking for a bit of attitude.
Yeah, I'm
local attitude around here.
Yeah, where
can I find someone's Hong Kong attitude?
And he just points you to the rough part of town.
The rough part of... Why is that?
Let me just pick up some attitude.
Why can't it be a positive, good nature?
I don't know, yeah, maybe it is good.
Why immediately assume it's the bad part of town?
Well, what's the good part of town? Like, yes, go to this neighborhood. It's very wholesome. You walk into the neighborhood and like everyone offers you an apple pie or something. Like.
All right, let's have a look at, once again, let's talk about the actual standings that we've seen here tonight. Let's recap what we've already had. So scoreboard first, I guess. Flashful still sitting at the top. We're going to find out what they look like at the end of the night when they play. Blank got their match up against Fireball next. Currently at 19-6. We'll actually finish up this recap later because we're about to head in now to the post-match interview. We have DeToNator.GOLD, Zinlo, and Eric.
Hi, I'm DeToNator.GOLD.
也非常欢迎体操来到我们的舞台上。首先呢，要请问一下，就是在这个斗阵特工赛事这么密集，自己又入选了国家队，怎么样去分配这个时间去做训练呢？
So people are wondering that, you know, since there are so many trainings we need to do, you know, during like the OPC and the World Series. So how do you manage your time to do the training?
เขาถามประมาณว่าคือเรามีต้องไปแข่งต้องซ้อม World Cup ด้วยแล้วก็ต้องซ้อม
By World Series, I think he means the World Cup.
ก็วันไหนถ้ามีชนกับ World Cup ก็คือจะต่อยาวๆเลยก็คือฝึกหนักกว่าเดิมนั่นเองครับ
So he said that whenever he have the practice for World Cup, he will just extend the practice time to like 1 in the morning. I mean 1 a.m. Yeah.
他说就是如果有这种国际赛事要打的话，通常他都会就是加长他的训练时间。对，所以就是可能平常训练6个小时，他可能就会训练10个小时这样。
加长时间这样，
对
因为我们知道说他在这个游戏里面最常使用的角色是温斯顿嘛，他自己觉得掌握度跟队友的搭配有没有哪些需要加强的地方？
So since that your majority is playing Winston, so is there anything that you think that you can do is better to improve the whole team?
เขาบอกว่าปกติบาสเล่นแต่วินสตันใช่ไหมก็คือบาสแบบสามารถให้วินสตันอะไรกับทีมแล้วมันที่ทำให้ทีมแบบก้าวหน้าอย่างเงี้ยคือวินสตันของบาสช่วยอะไรให้ทีมได้มั่ง
ก็น่าจะเป็นเรื่องการสื่อสารส่วนใหญ่ก็จะมีแค่นั้นเลยเราต้องการการสื่อสารมากขึ้น
so he said that Winston is a very important role and it need require a lot of communication. So basically, communication is very important, and he can give that communication to the team, like who to go and where, what to do and stuff.
就他说，其实因为温斯顿在团队里面是一个非常重要的，因为他扮演着坦的角色，所以他觉得就是在团队里面呢，怎么样的去跟团队成员沟通协调非常重要。那就是我们当然因为其实也来没有很久，所以我们接下来还要做很多的，就是继续的努力去沟通协调这方面去下功夫。对。
那最后一个问题其实也是大家最想知道，就是在国王大道的时候，他们身为一个防守方，为什么会想要使用平推阵呢？
So during the map King's Row, what kind of decision let us decide that to use the 3-1-2 formation?
ตอนด่านคิงโรทำไมเราถึงเลือกที่จะใช้ 3-2-1
ทีมเป็นคนคิดครับไม่รู้เหมือนกัน
He said that the team just decided to go with 3-2-1. He have no idea.
他说就是大家自己决定，就是大家决定的这样。
就大家决定好，
对大家
然后就
决定
使用这个阵势了。
对。
好，谢谢 Titawa 接受我们
there
的
you go.
访问。
Man,
谢谢
Mandarin to English to Thai. I mean, talk about Chinese whispers.
And I think we may even get a couch interview as well. What I found interesting is I didn't know Tita what was actually on the World Cup team, so that means 4 of the Fireball members are on their national World Cup team. You got
And-
Kurlos, Inzana, Anaputo, and Tita Watt.
Yeah, and I don't find
And
it.
Mickey from MVS, so that's pretty scary.
Yeah, there you go. I don't actually find that too surprising. They are looking very strong.
Gonna
players.
go onto the couch with DeToNator, Sabagod Sensei, and of
可以
course
邀请到2
the
位
translator.
就是 DTN 的这个新登场的选手啊。那神社这边不是新登场，就本来是教
Here
练
to
嘛
welcome
对不
the
对
new
然后就
player
下来
on the
打
team.
那我们这边
And of
想
course,
先问
Sensei is not a new
Sabagay
player,
这
but
边
he's
一个
also
问
playing.
题就是说，因为毕竟他是新加入的，对不对
You're a
而
new
且呢
member?
其实观众对他应该没有很了解，所以
So
这边就会
maybe
请他就是
not quite
他的自我介绍
experienced
来
the
深
team
入
just
一点，例如说就是说他之前有什么经历啊，有参加
What kind
过
of
什么队伍啊
previous
或者
experience
之类可以跟我
did
们
you
大家
have
分享一下
coming into this team?
まずサバゲさんに、この OBC に参加することすごく喜びを感じでようこそ台湾って伝えたい。そして質問についてはサバゲさんにサバゲさんのことをあんまり知らない台湾の視聴者たちに自己紹介をお願いします。日本語でも大丈夫です。
サバゲって言います。基本的にサポートロールをメインにやってて、穴とかゼニアッタとかマーシーとかそこら辺を主に使ってます。お願いします。
他说就是我是サバゲ，然后他就是最擅长使用的是安娜，然后柴
So I
雅
like to play
塔
Anna a
然
lot
后
and
跟
Zenyatta.
就是他是以辅助为
以辅助为主
So
的
I'm a support
一个
player.
辅助的选手。
对，那他之前都没有在任何的，例如说业余队伍啊，或什么队伍里面参加过嘛？完
So
全
did
没
you
有
have experience in other teams or
以前
other
は
competitions
他
or
の
anything?
チームに参加することあるんでしょうか？もしくは、大会とかに参加した経験がありませんか？
もともとは、日本のアマチュアチームに所属していて、今回デトネーターに最近加入してこういう機会をいただけたって形ですね。
他说就是 过去他是曾经参加过业余的队伍，
So I've played for
那
Japanese
这
teams
次是
before.
正式加入一个就是比较职业的战队
But this is my
体
first
系。那
professional team.
参加这种比较大型的比赛也是第一次。
This is my first professional competition as well.
在一个这样子职业的环境下面，他会很紧张吗？
So do you find it quite stressful or high pressure playing in a professional
大会に
environment?
参加することは初めてで緊張しますか？
そんな緊張はそこまでするタイプではないんですけど、まあでもやっぱりいつものやりたかったことだったりとかどうしてもできない部分もあって、まあそれも大会に影響されている部分もあるのかなって感じですね。多少ないと。
他说他本身并不是一个非常会紧张的人，
He says
然
he's
后他觉得
naturally not a
就是
stressful
今天自己
person.
有做不好或是失误的地方，可能因为这个比赛的气氛感染到，让他
But he-
自己可能在不知不觉中变得很
But
紧
he is still
张。
getting used to the tournament environment, the professional environment, so
蛮可惜的，但是可以
still
看得出来
getting
就
over
是
some mistakes he's making.
你们在换上新的人之后，就有一些新的化学效应，感觉今天打得还不错。
You,
那我这
you've
边
played
有几个
quite well
问题想
even
问
with
Sensei 这边
some new members. I've got a question for
毕竟他是
Sensei.
队伍的教练嘛。
You're also the
那是
coach.
怎么样的情况？为什么会自己下来打
So
呢？
why is it today that you're playing in the match?
先生はいつも通りコーチを担当してもらってでどうして今日は自分が選手として出場したのでしょうか？
うちの選手の中でサムライディというメインタンクを今やってる選手がちょっと今具合がかなり悪くて、大会に出れない状況になってで僕もセブンマンに登録していたのでその代わりにちょっと来ました。
因为我们的选手就是本来担任主坦的Samurai D 选手，
So
因
Samurai
为
D
今天身体不是很
Is-
舒服，
isn't feeling
所
too
以
well today. He's
我
sick.
们就是为了今后就是还要参加
But
比赛的关
to
系
manage to play the
Samurai D
match,
选手
I'm going to be
今天是
filling
用
in for
休息的
Samurai
状
D.
态，然后让
Give him a chance to rest as
先
well.
生选手就是担任选手这样子。
OK，我一开始以为就是说，今天刚好你们有这个新的辅助选手，就是 Sabage 这边要
I
加
thought
入，
because, you know,
可能
Sabagod's
就是
new
Sensei
in
这
here
边
as
的
well.
配合跟他比较
And
好，
maybe
所以你们才做了
maybe
这
it
样的
was
调
a
整。
deliberate move to put
哦，并不
Sensei
是，
in
所
there
以
as
今
well
天是
to
因
pair
为
with
很
him.
突然的突发情况。
But it was
但是
because
这
it's
Sensei 也是打
a
得相当的
special
不错啊，蛮厉害的嘛。
circumstances.
先
Saying
生選手の
Sensei still had a really
パ
good
フォーマン
performance.
スもすごくいいって褒められてますよ。
不会不会。
不会，这是非常谦虚哦。那我这边还有一个问题，就是想要问一下这个Sabage，因为毕竟他是今天新加入，而且就是照刚
I've got
刚
another
的
question for Sabage.
讲法的话，这是他第一次参加一个职业的舞台嘛？
This is his
那
first
在一
professional
个新
tournament.
加入
Yes.
一个职业的情况，对他自己的这个心态上有什么样的改
So
变
how
吗？
does he feel about that?
サバ
What kind of
ゲさんは
feelings does he have in
新しい
personally?
加入したメンバーでちょっともう一つの質問をさせていただきます。
はい
で、サバゲさんは初めてこういうプロっていうステージを立つことについてはどんな、心境的な変わったとこありますか？
まあこういうお客さんがいてステージもあってっていう恵まれた環境でプレーするのがまあ夢というか憧れだったので、それを叶えられて嬉しい一面と、今回は2連敗という形になってしまったんで、これからも努力していきたいなと思ってます。
就是他觉得就是在台下有观众，然后还有播报员，然后跟这样子很完整的职业体系的比赛下，可以参加这次的比赛，他觉得很荣幸。
So he says it's
但是
incredibly
结果来说，就是连输了2场，他觉得就是不足的地方，我们今后还要再做改进。
He feels it's a big honor to actually be playing in a really
那
big
这个是
tournament
他
like
第
this,
一
and he
次
still feels
算
like, you
是
know,
长
after
时
2
间
losses,
离
it's
开
not the best
家
start,
离
but
开日本嘛。
still feels
サバケ
some
さんは
residual
これ
effects of
は
that.
初めてちょっと長い時間に日本から離れるなんでしょうか？
いや、そういうわけじゃなくて、今回の大会が終わったら、もう明日、明後日にはもう日本に帰国して、日本からの練習に参加するって形で、これからの大会は他のメンバーが出る予定です。
他这次并不会长期的，他不会很长期的待到这个赛季结束。
Saying
对，
he may not be here for
之
too long
后会
depending
先
on
回到日本，然后
DeToNator
等到
success, but
需要比赛
he
的时候
may
再过来台
return
湾的
to
感觉。
he may return to Japan
所
as
以他
well,
并不会
and maybe
因
then
为
come
毕
back
竟联
if
赛
they're
快结束，
are
所以有
able
可
to
能
make
联
it
赛
back
结
in
束
Europe.
他就会去日本。
是。
OK， 哇，那我们这边也是非常感谢可以邀请到2位来参加我们的采访啊。那我们这边镜头
There it
跟
is.
观众说个拜拜咯。
Thoughts from
拜拜
the new DeToNator member, of course, the coach himself.
And I did actually postulate that it could be that Samurai D was unwell. That does seem to be the case. So get well soon, Samurai D. You do have a week to recover.
There it is. The beauty of having subs, or at least, maybe a coach that just sort of fits in. Who knows? Maybe Serenity's playing tonight. We may have to just find that one out. It is going to be Fireball versus Blank Esports next, and following that will be Flash Wolves versus Sun Sisters. So I think that's pretty much it for the first half of the evening. We're going to continue the festivities, and I would guess about roughly an hour's time. So, come back for the next 2 matches, and otherwise we'll see you soon.